gonna make a joke about like don't call it a comeback, but this is like a three-peat.
It is a three-peat. Look at it. It was a triple header. Well, but that's like in a row, right?
Do I introduce you now? Like, how does that work with like multiple guests? It's like you should know.
Well, I don't know because we're gonna talk about it later, I think. But the podcast has like grown since the last time I was here. 10 months ago?
Dude, it has.
So I may actually be very new to a lot of people. So.
Well, for those that may not know, the uninitiated, this is Aureylian, a good friend of mine. She was is it safe to say a former YouTuber at this point?
That's a nicer way to say washed up, but like, yeah. Yeah, that's good.
Past my prime YouTuber.
Yeah. I'm from the old guard that people have now forgotten. A relic buried in time.
Back in the day,
yeah, man. The golden age of YouTube, like 2012.
Were you doing it before that first adpocalypse ever came through?
Oh, years before. I was doing YouTube before you could be monetized on YouTube. That's how long ago I was doing YouTube.
So then what was like, I want to be careful how I say this because I don't want to sound like some shill.
Why did you do it?
Yeah, like what was the incentive? Was there like additional compensation from other means?
Man, here's what's crazy about back in the day is people used to do things because they were passionate about it. Isn't that weird? Like imagine a world in which people just do things that make them happy.
You better keep that same energy when we start talking about video games. Because I agree with you more than you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, there were opportunities back then. So like I was getting... Long before I was monetized, like on YouTube making ad revenue, I was getting sponsorship deals. So there were opportunities, and back then you could technically monetize. So now anybody, as long as you have an AdSense account, you can, and you hit the like criteria, you can monetize. Back then you had to be part of what was essentially like a talent agency. Back then it was known as an MCN or a multi-channel network. And so you would have...
Oh yeah, Machinima and all those.
Yeah.
That's a throwback.
Yeah. And so you had to be accepted by one of those MCNs. And then you could be monetized and then they would pay you out your ad revenue. So for a while, I received my ad revenue from Maker Studios, who was owned by Disney. So I guess I'm a Disney princess in some ways. But my paycheck didn't come from Google AdSense. It came from Disney.
That's fascinating. So
I actually have paycheck stubs that say Disney on them.
So basically, when you first started, it was like the additional like thought process of like a network on YouTube.
Yeah, and there was like extra like you got judged on how good the quality of your content was. Like now you can put relative like shit out and you can.
Boy, do I know that.
Let's go back to episode 1, my episode. No, it was a great episode. But yeah, I mean, now anybody can monetize anything. And back then, like you really did have to be like vetted, accepted, approved. MCNs would drop you if you weren't performing. Like the standard for what you could do back then was a lot higher. And so that's how I made my first. And in fact, like back then there were certain MCNs you did not want to be a part of. Like predatory, Machinima is one of them. And so you wanted to, it was like college where you like applied and then waited for your favorite acceptance to come in, and then that's where you went. That's kind of how MCNs worked back then.
When you say predatory, I mean, don't you have like contracts? Like, isn't it kind of
but some of them would take like, so again, with like an AdSense, the rev share is anywhere between like 50-50 for ads, right? Back then you could sign like the best ones were 90-10s. You could sign a 90-10 deal where you would get 90% of your ad revenue and the agency would only take 10%. But there were other ones where they were like almost inverse, where they would take like
that's insane
30%. And some of them actually would do flat CPMs, where they would just tell you, we're just going to pay you a flat like a CPM, regardless of what
like a salary. Pay. Yeah, no matter what.
Kind of, but like so, ad revenue on YouTube is seasonal, right? Like in January, it's usually the worst.
This is right after the holidays.
Because right after the holidays, Q1 spending for businesses is really low. And then you get into like Super Bowl and it tends to get a little bit higher because all the Super Bowl ads are running. Summertime tends to be higher.
Presidential election time
tends to be higher. And so if the CPMs could get upwards of like the highest I think I ever saw was $36 CPM. But if you had a flat rate, you were like still making $3.95. But then when CPMs were $1, you were making $3.95.
For those that might not know what a CPM is, do you mind just kind of
elaborating? It's basically how much money per 1,000 views on your video. So if you make $3.95 for every 1,000 views on your video, you're making $3.95. But the CPMs are seasonal and they're dependent. And now, again, YouTube back then, the ad just rolled. Now you also get different payments based on the type of ad. If it's like an in-stream ad, meaning like you still see the video, but there's a banner at the bottom, that's one type. Then if somebody clicks on it, you get more. If it actually stops the video and an ad plays, if somebody completes the ad, you get paid more versus if they skip it. So there's different CPMs, but that back then it was just an ad played. And
it's actually proven to be kind of like a weird. I remember when we first started the podcast, getting monetized on YouTube was just kind of like a metric, like a goal. I was like, okay, like if this is going to be like a legit thing, I want to be monetized, right?
Yeah.
And when we got that,
it's an option.
Yeah, it's an option. And I think it kind of, maybe I'm stupid, or maybe I'm overthinking it. I think it kind of validates the content. Like, hey, we're decent enough to run ads, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and it unlocks a bunch of other partner opportunities. Like you get different moderation features, you get different VOD storage.
Boy, do I understand that now.
You get the custom URLs.
Yep.
Like a lot of the things that you get with partnership on YouTube, yes, the payment is like nice, but when you first hit that payment, you're not making anything. It's the other benefits that are actually a lot better for you than the money.
Just wanted to take a second to pause the action and just tell you guys, thank you so much for consuming our content. Easy Talk is a passion project. This podcast is just a bunch of like-minded people coming together to produce some cool stuff and talk to some cool people. One of the things I would very much appreciate is if you could possibly like the video or subscribe to the channel, just because it helps us in the algorithm and ultimately to grow, to get more exposure to everybody, including ourselves, and ultimately just make a better product. Take a second, I'd greatly appreciate it, and on with the show.
I'll tell you what, once we got monetized too, you start getting some emails too. Now we're at the point with the podcast where like, I've said this time and time again, it's not necessarily like we're chasing money.
Yeah.
If we can generate enough money to cover the cost, then that's beautiful, because then we can just do this forever, right? But I also don't want like 10 sponsors at like $100 a pop or something like that. Like,
Yeah.
I would like just like one product that I really believe in, that I would like really like to push. If I can get that and like just get like enough to kind of cover the cost, I'm happy with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's what we get. Like we get some emails and stuff like that, but it's like, here's a promo code, here's this, here's that. And I'm like, dude, the last thing I want to do is like, before we get to like even a minute of a conversation, I'm like, here's
my
ad
paid ad.
roll. Yeah.
But I mean, I'll tell you this,
Now, if they were paying me like 20 or 30,000.
Yeah.
Boy,
I'm throwing a lot
this
of things
podcast
there.
is brought to you
I'm
by.
wearing the mugs are labeled, the t-shirts are labeled.
Everybody's got a price.
Everyone's got one. But I think actually that's the beauty of social media, is because the content itself can be relatively unobscured from a lot of that sponsor opportunity. But then you have like your Instagram shorts, your X account, whatever. Like that's actually where having, outside of the podcast version, whether you listen on YouTube or Spotify or wherever you're listening, having the social channels is actually better, because it's a one hit. Like I can make $500, $1,000. I mean, I got like paid to do a Cheerios ad, or not Cheerios, SpaghettiOs. I was also in a Cheerios ad, but I got paid to do SpaghettiOs, and like they were like, post a can with your kid. And so there's a picture, like if you dig through the backlog of my Instagram, there's a picture of my daughter in a pink stormtrooper's mask holding like a scan of SpaghettiOs, because it was like a Star Wars branded SpaghettiOs, and I got paid for that ad. So it's in her college fund now, in case anybody doesn't call me out. But like,
we did it for a good cause.
Yeah, it went towards my child's future education. But like, yeah, I mean, I think that's the beauty of that, is like you can keep your content, pure, right, and not like just overwhelmed.
Yeah. I don't even know if pure is the right way to describe it. Like, I guess I just want to
unobstructed.
Here's the thing. The best way I can equate it to is like mobile gaming. So like I have a couple games that I like to play. One of them is chess.com, like the chess.com app too.
Sponsored by chess.com.
Well, actually, you know what? I love playing chess. So, that's
they got that one as a freebie.
But you want to know what I love about that? No fucking ads.
Oh, yeah.
I can just go from game to game to game. And that's actually like, usually if I'm not doing an audiobook or something, that's how I go to bed now. Is like, I'll play a game of chess, 3-minute or 10-minute, and then like I'll kind of roll out. I don't have to sit through ads. There are games that I enjoyed like playing on my phone, like a little screw game or whatever there is. But then like you just get bombarded after like the first 4 or 5 levels. You get bombarded with the shop.
That's why they pay you.
With the ads, with all this other shit. And I'm just like, dude, I can't even like play the game because I have to sit through this 30-second ad. And for me, like, you could say like, well, Ariane, why don't you just pay to get the ads removed?
It's like $19.
By the way, no, I did on this specific game. And here's the thing I hate, like the predatory like practices that they have. So I paid $10 for a specific game that I don't want to say for obvious reasons. I paid $10 to like remove ads, right? I was like, finally, like I just want to fucking play the game. It's a fun game. It only removes the ad after you're done with a level.
Do you know what you want to hear the hack? Hold on, I got a hack for you. You didn't hear it from me.
Airplane mode?
Yep.
Yeah.
You turn your phone on airplane
But
mode
the
when
fact
you're
that you
playing the
even have
game.
to- yeah.
They can't register the data to like run the ad. So
Well, now they're getting better at that though, and
Oh, are they, like,
now it's like
preloading?
pre-rolled
Oh, yeah.
ads. Like whenever you download the game, you're downloading
that
all
was
the
my
ads
favorite.
as well.
That was my favorite reason. So there's like a couple of games that like there was one game when my boyfriend and I started dating. I was like playing this mobile game all the time, and I was like into this game. And I went to China. During that, I was like 26 hours of flight time, and the best part was I was airplane mode, and I got no ads on the whole 26 hours I was playing this game. Yeah, it was good.
One of the things I was gonna say is like, it made me then uninstall the game. So like, I paid the $10 because I was under the assumption that I would just get the ads removed, and I'm fine with that. Like,
Yeah.
if I like
That's
free
how
to-
they make their money.
I like
get it.
free to play because it allows people that don't necessarily have some funds to like play a game. Great. Give me the option to pay out of that shit, right?
Yeah.
And I thought, and this is the part that irritated me, I thought that I did. Like, so then after I paid the $10 and then I get this ad, I'm like, wait, what the fuck did I just buy? I never think, okay, if you're doing any sort of business transaction at all, whether it's a good or service, the customer should never at the end of that transaction think, what the fuck did I just pay money for?
Right. Yeah.
If they
it
do,
should be super clear.
it's a shitty product.
Yeah.
So that's how I felt, and I just uninstalled it. I said, you know what? Learned my lesson, $10. But then I thought to myself, like, how is that like legal? That's got to be like
Yeah.
faulty advertisement or you know, like when you're
Misleading.
misleading advertisement. No, because then it's like, no, there's actually like the terms of service on all these little purchases, and this is kind of a good segue. So like,
Yeah.
the reason why I don't want too many ads on the podcast is also because I want the emphasis to be on like the conversations, and I want
Yeah.
people to like want to tune in, and I don't want them to get a fucking ad every 5 minutes. You know what I mean? It's just
Because
like,
they tune out.
Yeah, dude, I tune out.
Even
I tune out.
statistically speaking, people will tune. You're like, oh, you interrupted it, and then their attention span immediately goes like we've trained our younger generations particularly to not be able to sit through ads, and they like bounce. So the second that they hit any amount of friction, they're like, and then their attention span's gone. If their attention span's gone, they're clicking. They have to be clicking or doing something, and
I
like
don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
it's a bad thing. It's terrible. We talked about this on the last podcast, but the average attention span on TikTok is like 0.5 seconds. It's not even a whole second. It's a fraction of a second.
I don't use TikTok.
That's terrible.
That's my boomer thing. Is like I just don't use TikTok. I already get annoyed at how many social medias like I have to
Yeah.
kind of feel connected and everything.
Yeah.
And fun fact, there's another business that I'm going to be opening up in 2026, and we're going to need even more social media presence. So I'm actually like, I used to like, forgive me if this is anybody's job, but like I used to laugh at people being like, I'm a social media manager. I was like, it's not a fucking job.
A third of my team's social media manager,
Woo!
so
God bless.
it's hard.
I'm hiring one.
There's strategy. I mean, there is a very specific strategy on how you keep people engaged, how you do relevant content.
Search engine optimization,
SEO,
all these other things.
Yeah, that's usually going to be like your paid media team, not necessarily like your social media. But if they know SEO, that's helpful. But like
This person does, so I'm like, thank God.
good. I mean, there is definitely a science to it, and I know that the team that we have at work, we have this kind of standard that we don't utilize other IP in our work, right? Like we're very proud of our IP, we're very proud of the work that we do. And so, one of the standards, I guess, like I'll take responsibility for that I set was like, we don't use third party, which the implication is that is like when you get into like trending sounds or like viral sounds on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, we don't use them. And so like
forgive me, what do you mean by third
so
party?
you know how like
I'm very bad at
do you know
social media.
okay, so like TikTok trends were like, when people will do things like, wait, you don't know me like I know you, and then they'll do like the dance and there's like the thing and it's like a song that like trends, right? Or they'll do whatever.
I'm
There
a
will
boomer,
be,
man. I'm
like,
busy playing chess.com.
I'm trying to like now I'm like on the spot and I'm trying to think of like what are some
What's
of the
hip? What's down?
like usually it's audio.
Okay.
Usually it will be audio of somebody like saying something and the trend will go viral and then people will like mouth over it, or it'll be a song and people will do like the dance to the song. So all of that is third party IP. And so we don't use third party IP in our
I'm sure that
socials.
makes that then more difficult.
It makes it a lot more difficult because
can't
like
ride
you are
trends.
trying, yes. So you're trying to figure out like what are people doing and saying and how do we like lean into the conversation without using those third party. And it's been really interesting to see that like the type of content that performs the best on our channels is like very anti-traditional content, but it serves a very different purpose. And so there is a way to succeed on social media, not having to do what everyone else is doing and not like leaning into that. But it is very hard to find the people who are specialized in being able to like make that happen.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an art. So I'm very lucky that our social media team is like killing it and like really good.
Well, this is one of the rare moments where I have to like eat my own shoe, where I'm like, you know what, I talked all this shit on this stuff, and like, here I am hiring a person.
Yeah.
For two reasons more than anything. One, we live in a world now where social media is like, people don't watch TV, so like doing like a B-roll ad on your favorite TV show is like basically useless at these points. And radio, it's more isolated towards like, you know, a certain physical location.
Yeah.
Where social media can be so broad, it's truly the best way to advertise, and when done right, can make like the purchasing of a product or service good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times where I do see ads on social media. I'm like, oh, I would actually like that.
The number of things that I've actually purchased for myself because I've seen an ad for it has been
That's how I buy
amazing.
stuff. That's how I buy stuff.
And here's here's like what's dangerous and scary, right? Like ad agencies in the 50s and 60s got in trouble for doing like subliminal advertising, right? There are all these like famous case studies that you can look at. Like Coke would like intercede, like in movie theaters, they would do like one slide that would be so fast that your eyes wouldn't register it, but your brain would register it like back in your subconscious. And they basically said you can't use subliminal advertising. It's not okay. I was
recently playing to the psyche of the individual.
Correct. I also like went down this rabbit hole recently about the hertz that they use in music now. It's like because it makes your brain more susceptible to like feeling or evoking like thoughts. So there's lots of things that like we don't view as, deceptive or subliminal advertising. But ads now are scary in that, like, you talked about playing chess, right? And that was you just like making your recommendation. There are now advertisements that feel like people going, oh, hey, I like love this thing. And it's a paid ad.
Yeah.
And you're like now having to like blur the line of mistrust of, is that somebody authentically giving their recommendation for something, or are they genuinely being paid to give that recommendation? And the FTC has come in and put in all of these, guidelines around.
You have to disclose.
Yeah, but the FTC is not going after people for doing it. Like the most they've done is like send some really like harshly worded letters.
Well, the problem is the dilution of it. So like when it was like TV and you had, basic cable was 80 something channels. Yeah. Like the FTC could kind of crack down a little easier because you knew that like there was 87 channels that you
can't do that to
What
millions
are you gonna do?
Of social
Look at
medias.
everybody on social media, look at everybody on YouTube, look at everybody on Twitch and all these other things. It's like, dude, there's just not enough. The number one rule of legislation is never create a law that you can't enforce. Yeah. And unfortunately, certain laws are basically there on paper to deter people, but unless you do it egregiously or in mass, you will not be
they're gonna
facing
like
any sort of
that's
repercussions.
why I think the last. And I don't know everything the FTC does, and thankfully I don't have connection or reason to be involved because we are following the rules. But I think the last...
You would be the one that got caught. Like a company
would
be the ones that they cracked down on, not me.
But even me as like a very forward-facing social media influencer, like when you start to hit into the hundreds of thousands and millions of views... That is when the FTC starts to take notice. And if you are being an egregious offender, like people will like now, like, people like they for better or worse, like will like tag at FBI, like look at this weirdo, like on the internet. Yeah. People will do that to the FTC. They'll if they think something is like really inauthentic or they think that you're sponsoring something or you're misleading, they will tag the FTC. And be like, you should look at this person.
Pretty soon, we're just gonna have like a government account on people, like my FBI agent that's like designed to like look after me, and my CIA agent, and then my FTC
like remember
agent,
the
and then my SEC agent.
The meme was like, to the FBI guy on my phone, for all intents and purposes, this is a joke.
I have a buddy that I work with who has like the tape over his like laptop on his
camera.
The tape over the camera on his laptop, his work laptop, and I was like, why are you doing that? He's like, so people can't see me. And I said, brother, if anybody looks through that webcam, they're going to see me doing one of two things. And one is boring. The other one, they're going to turn it off real quick. So
I always got nervous about doing it because, like, there are just times where, you just don't know if the camera is on. Like, especially for work trips or whatever. Like, if I'm in a plane, I don't want the camera on, or if I'm, like, taking calls in an airport. I don't want the camera accidentally on.
Fun fact, do you know that because of the remote and hybrid work schedule that like workplace harassment, like sexual harassment, is at like an all-time ever since they ever started recording the data low? And like it was
Because it's not in person.
Well, it's not in person, but someone actually brought this up and they're like, this is kind of a little like, they're like, how many people like on their, whatever are just doing whatever they want while they're working? And it's like resulted in a bunch of men that are just skating by. And I worry long-term about remote and hybrid work because I think people do not know how to shut the fuck up when something is good. And then you'll get on like TikTok or Instagram or whatever, and they'll be like, I, worked 1 hour today with my hybrid. Yeah, well, if enough people start saying this shit, then guess what employers are going to start doing?
Well, and that's like people who are like, yeah, I put the thing on my mouse that makes it auto jiggle.
Jiggler.
So that like, because certain companies like track how active your mouse is.
By the way, I guarantee you right now, because I work in information systems, if you install anything onto your work laptop, we know about it.
But have you seen the ones that are physical? It's physically attaches to your mouse.
Yeah,
and
but that's the
it.
thing. Like, so everything that you do on a computer has like a code. There's like a log of every action that's on a computer. So I can tell if
you opened a program.
If you opened a program, if you typed a key, like what that key was, like that's what key loggers essentially do. They log those. They log those logs. So like, not only can I don't know how much I should say. Actually, no one knows anything about me, so I can see if someone is on Teams mobile or on a PC or on some other sort of hardware, like a tablet or whatever.
Yeah.
So like I can tell that if like you're, 32 hours out of the week, you're on Teams on your phone.
Yeah.
That means you're out and about doing some shit. Why aren't you on your laptop or whatever?
Yeah.
If you install anything, usually there's always like these precursors like to prevent you from installing anything. But even if somehow you're smart and savvy and you can work your way around it, or maybe if you're in IT and you know how to work your way around it, we can still look into the hardware after the fact, and like we can find everything.
Yeah.
So like all I'm saying to you is like the same way
you can skirt the system in the short term, but your productivity is gated.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Like I'm not so upset with the people that are like kind of like quiet quitting or any of these other things. Then just shut the fuck up. And if you're still able to do 40 hours of work, but with 20, good. You're efficient. Amazing.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You're going to ruin it for everybody. And then especially with like commercial real estate and how it's like falling off a cliff, like employers are looking for reasons to bring people back into the office.
Yes.
And
they are for sure.
I also think that remote work, off topic, forgive me, I also think that remote work will be like what saves people, because it'll allow people to actually like, if they work in a digital namespace, I'm sorry for like people that are like blue collar, but if you work in a digital namespace, you can get the coast salary and then move to Rust Belt, Missouri if it want to, and get the most bang for your buck. And then it will relieve, like, what do you hear about like cities that like everybody says it's like crime, cost of living, these things, right? Well, if you just have people that, can work and benefit from the infrastructure of a city, but maybe like in the suburbs. I'm not even talking about like, going from New York City to like Kansas
Illinois,
City. I'm saying going from New York City to like an hour out of the city.
Connecticut.
If I needed to drive to the office, I could, but I don't have to make that commute every day, so why am I? You know what I mean? You'll just have less people there, so the people that are needing housing in those cities can now have it more affordably because of supply and demand. Just the pressures.
Yeah.
I actually think that remote work will help in one of those things. However, what it's going to do in the precursor is absolutely, like I said, crush commercial real estate, because people are just not going to need as much of it.
Well, and I also think that like accountability is very different. I think certain people thrive in remote work. I've been a remote worker for 12 years. I was a remote worker way before the pandemic, and I had to learn on my own. And I was like actually really angry because I've been a remote worker for almost my entire career in gaming. And when the pandemic hit and people were like, well, I don't have a desk. Who's going to buy my desk? Well, I'm not getting food every day. Who's going to buy my food? And I was like, I've been doing this for like 8 years. Like nobody bought my desk. Nobody bought my office chair. Nobody gave me an extra monitor. Like, and then companies were coming out and doing like $300 stipends for your desks and like all this stuff. And I was like,
but they should do that.
Well,
I hate to say it that way.
I know they should do that, but it was almost like this like weird resiliency of all of a sudden people were like, well, I get all these things from being in the office, but then how quick did people shift into like, well, I don't want to go back into the office. And so, I do think that there's some people thrive. I think what I've known is even now, like I fly into LA 1 to 2 times a month. I'm probably in LA.
God bless.
Yeah, I'm probably in LA maybe 30% of the year-ish. 20% of the year, 20, 30% of the year. And I do still, even now, I've been in my job for 4 years. I lead a very large team. I am very active. I am super collaborative. I am proactive with a lot of people. The number of times I get in and people are like, oh, while you're here, can I grab you for 15 minutes? I want to talk to you about something. I'm like, I'm literally available on Slack probably 18 hours a day. And you can hit me anytime. But that having that physical thing really matters. I think especially if you're a people manager or like a cross-functional leader, certain conversations need to be held face to face. I don't think that you can give somebody like a performance issue over a Zoom call. Like, I think you need to do that face to face.
When you say a performance issue, you mean like they're underperforming? Or
yeah,
you
they're
mean
like
a performance review. Sorry.
Well, maybe the performance review, but especially if somebody is like underperforming or somebody's not hitting expectations or somebody's like having a hard time, like I do think that that's a conversation you need to have in person. I think those types of things go a really long way. Unfortunately, when we had to do layoffs about a year ago, I did not hide in my office at home. I flew out and even when those people were on Zoom, I was physically present. I wanted people to know that I wasn't hiding away, that I was there in person and I was willing to face what was going on. I was there to support them if somebody needed to talk, if somebody needed a hug, if this was really hard stuff for people. And I do think that human connection goes a really, really long way in like building trust with people. So, there's a lot of pros and cons with being able to be a remote worker and having the more affordable, like I remote to LA and I live here in St. Louis. So I do think that there are pros and cons to being able to do that, but I don't want people to think that, you don't need to be in person. Like it's the equivalent of long distance dating versus dating in person. Same thing. Like there is a very different way that you build connection. You can certainly build an emotional connection, right? Like my boyfriend and I dated, the first 2 weeks we dated was only through text and phone. And we got to know each other very well. 20 hours on calls is more than most people get in the first several dates that they go on with each other. But there is still something to being physically in a space together that matters. And so I think sometimes people, like for their own convenience and selfishness, discount how important it is, but it truly does matter.
I think everything in life has pros and cons.
Of
and
course.
I think that if we were to dissect remote work, hybrid work, and fully in the office or fully at home, you could sit there and nitpick like this is good for, networking. Like obviously like being in the office, being personable, like face to face with people,
Yeah.
You get those serendipitous moments and like crossing, like I'm going to the bathroom and you might be getting a cup of
But
coffee.
I get no work done.
And I say, hey, I was about to say that. Like if there's different strokes for different folks. So let me kind of dissect this a little bit. I agreed with a lot of what you said, especially about the interpersonal relationships and
Yeah.
the networking.
Yeah.
If I had started my position 100% from home,
Yeah.
I would not have the relationships that I do, and then I would not have the salary that I do. I wouldn't have
Yeah.
the position that I do. So
Yep.
like, yes, you're right. But I also get way more done at home
Yep.
because I have less distractions. Whenever I'm in
Yep.
the office, I'm in the office 1 day a week. Whenever I'm in the office, that's basically like catch up day. And I don't mean like catch up on work. I mean catch up on like people coming over. Hey, buddy, what's
Yeah.
going? Let's grab lunch
I
today.
know I'm going to get nothing
Nothing
done that
done.
day. I know what I'm getting is social capital and not like
is that-
progress work.
So then the argument could be made though that like instead of extrapolating that throughout the week, selecting the isolated time to do that might be the most efficient way to get that.
I think like this is true in all things, and we can go down any number of these like rabbit holes, but I think truly in life, nothing exists on this side of the spectrum is right and this side of the spectrum of right. It always is going to be in the middle. So if you were like full 100% remote work versus full 100% in the office work, the answer is like neither.
Yeah.
The answer is a combination of both, and that combination is going to vary based on how efficient people are at being accountable for themselves, how much distraction. Some people, I know people who they live in, busy cities in New York City, they're in LA, and they have roommates or they have kids at home, and they're like, I can't get work done at home because
And they wanna go
I've
to the
got kids, I've got
office.
so I think everybody's personal situation is different. I think there are lots of factors that go into that, and I think, there's been a lot of things that have been happening just, I think, culturally across the board where people are being very, binary and the like, this is right or this is right. And the answer is like, neither of those 100% are correct. It's something in the middle, and that something in the middle is going to vary for every single person individually. And it's our job as a community member, as whether that's, our own communities or as parents or as managers in our workplaces, to figure out how to balance that in a way that is fair in a way that feels good for everybody, and in a way that like the system inherently is not so rigid that you end up here or here, but have the flexibility to allow people to kind of live in these spaces.
Well, I think that's where perspective comes in. You have to understand that just because someone does something different from you, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're incorrect. They could be correct for themselves. Like I said, or like you said, a new mother might have like maybe the third kid, and like they can't get anything done because they have 3 toddlers in the background. So they're like, get me to work, let the nanny watch this stuff, you know what I mean? So that they can actually be productive. For them, maybe going into the office is like the most productive way to do work. And then for the single guy, maybe like fresh into IT, help desk, he's like, dude, I'm just chugging away. I'm in at 8.
I got Netflix on in the background.
Yeah,
you know?
or some Audible, or whatever, you know? The way we do it, and this is, you kind of hit on it with like not saying like, you know, there's one right way to do it. For the new hires, we make them come in for the first 6 months, 100% in. After that, for the next 6 months, they have hybrid. After that, they have the same hybrid where it's like 1 day a week. And we make sure that everybody is in on the same day so that it actually has value. Because if like you're in on a Monday and then I'm in on a Tuesday and like the office is empty.
You miss that.
Yeah, what's the point of even coming in?
Yeah.
So we've established that the only reason to come in is important because everybody else is also quote unquote in.
Yeah.
And then that's why I say like nothing gets done. But however, in terms of productivity, nothing gets done. But like you were alluding to, that social fabric, you have the lunches, you have the camaraderie,
Culture
you have
matters.
the banter. And then when they go back home, Monday through Thursday, it's like, you know, you get the IM and you're willing to work a little harder for that person because you know them. You had lunch with them. Maybe you had a beer with them on Friday happy hour. You know what I mean? I think it is important. But I also think that for me personally, it took being in the office for the better part of like the first 5 or 6 years of my corporate life to then appreciate and have the ability to do remote work. And you kind of said something to this, but like I hate to say this way, not everybody can do it because they do need to be there are multiple different managing styles. And I think they're respective of who it is that they're hiring. So for me, I deliberately hire people that I don't have to micromanage. Yeah. If I feel like I have to micromanage you,
self-accountable, proactive.
You're not on my team.
Yeah.
I want to know that on a Monday I could be like, hey, we need to have this done by Thursday, and then call me if you need me.
Wednesday night it's delivered.
Yeah, call me if you need me. I'm always open. Set up a time. We'll discuss it. Like I don't want you to feel like I'm not helping you, but I'm not going to shadow you. Yeah. I'm paying you to do a job, and you're a big boy or girl. I'm assuming you're going to get this done. And if it doesn't get done, we'll have a conversation. 100% of the time, it usually gets done, barring some sort of like cataclysmic event. But like I wouldn't hire people that I would feel like I need to be in the office 5 days a week and kind of hover over them and go, hey, Jimmy, are you doing, you know what I mean? Yeah. Why are you back on YouTube? Like, come on now, chop chop. Like, no, get the fuck out of here. Yeah. That's not for me. Yeah. But different strokes for different folks. Maybe some people like being middle management. I don't know. I don't want to speak on anybody's behalf. These are just my preferences.
Yeah.
I do want to ask you, if you don't mind, if we can just take a small subsection, because we were talking about ads in like video games and ads for YouTube and stuff like that. Yeah. And the precursor, or I guess the umbrella for that, is kind of like the financializations of media, right? Yeah. I want to cater the conversation towards video games for a moment, if you'll indulge me. One of the things that's happening to me, and I'm not necessarily sure if it's me changing, like the micro, or perhaps the macro, like the industry's changing. I don't give a shit about video games like I used to. Yeah. When I was like, I remember when I got the PS2 and Final Fantasy X came out, and an 8-year-old Arion was like cooming his pants. I was like, oh my God, what is this?
Well, we used to get the ads in the Toys R Us for all the new video
we
games
had a subscription to Game Informer. Do you remember
Game
that?
Informer, yeah. I think I had Game Informer up until like 10 years ago.
It used to feel, for me at least, and not just when I was 10, but like also when I was like 22 and I was playing WoW and I just got done with like college and I was training and everything. Gaming felt like an escape for me, like from responsibility and all this stuff and entertainment. So like I was obviously entertained, the gameplay, the story, what have you, but it was also, it felt like it was an escape from the bullshit. You know what I mean? However, now when I play video games, and I don't know if this is me, I'd be curious to hear you, I can see like the finance people's claws in every video game I've ever played now. And it forces me, I play more old games now than new games. Like, I don't think I bought, outside of Claire Obscure, I haven't played like a new game in like a year.
I don't think I've purchased a new game. If you don't count expansion packs for The Sims 4, which is just like extra content for The Sims.
Isn't that EA?
Yeah, it's EA.
Oh, they're so egregious.
If you didn't count that, I bought a game called Streamed Horticulture. It's an indie game, probably like 4 months ago. And I bought it to play on my Steam Deck because my boyfriend and I are in the phase where like we have to be in the same room all the time together. And so like he wants to like watch like whatever sports thing is happening, and then I'm like, cool, well, I can play my video games like on my Steam Deck and like while he plays the things, and then because like I can't, there's nothing to do for in my high powered like PC room for him.
Not with that attitude.
Yeah, that's right. And for disclaimer, because we skipped the kind of who I am intro. I was a content creator specifically in video games. I played Minecraft for a very long time. That's like what my channel got known for. I now work in the industry. I was one of the founding members of Twitch, started that, did that for 7.5 years. I now work at Riot Games, where I lead all of global player community. So I'm like actively now on the publishing side of the video game thing. But even still, I think, I don't think I have purchased a game outside of maybe Strange Horticulture since the pandemic. It was Disney Dreamlight Valley. Is what I think that was like my last major game that I've purchased.
I understand the caveat that there are like additional ways to play games now, like with the Xbox Game Pass. Like I know that whenever I talk to your brother,
that's true.
Chris is always telling me, he's like, yeah, I played it on this and I got it on. It's on
for
Game
free.
Pass.
Yeah. If you pay it's like $19.99 a month for Game Pass. It's like Netflix. Like you can watch as many movies as you want. Yeah.
So let me kind of like add a little bit of nuance to this, because I think like people will say like, oh, well, monetization has always been in there. I'll use Riot's game League of Legends, for instance.
Yeah.
When the entrance of a game is free, then there seems to be a no-brainer that there will be some sort of commercial aspect to it to recoup that, right?
Yeah.
So like it's kind of like an enticement, like, hey, try this game. We won't charge you for it. You can download it for free. And if you do enjoy it, there will be options in which you can amplify your experience to whatever your heart content, right? It could be skins, it could be this. Usually outside of gameplay is the proper way to do it. So like a skin which has no real effect on like the numbers.
And that's our monetization model.
Exactly.
Nothing that we do
should affect gameplay.
Actually makes you pay to win. There's no pay to win strategy. Everything is cosmetic.
Yes.
And so that's how our games are run.
But more specifically, League of Legends is free to download.
It is free to, all of our games are free to download.
Exactly. Yeah. So like I guess I need to start with that caveat.
Yeah.
I played World of Warcraft for like the longest time. World of Warcraft had
subscription, live service model.
Well, live service model was fine with me, and even that upfront cost of like the original WoW was like $40.
Well, even the expansions are like $59.99.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And I was always fine with that because I was like, hey, every 2-3 years, I think it's like 2 years now, there's going to be like this additional big project that's going to get unveiled outside of the maintenance of the current product that I'm making use of. No problem buying that. And I can also understand paying that monthly fee.
Well, because you know that the money is going towards the development of new content, the sustainability of whatever.
Well, this is where we're going to get into it.
But this is why. So I quit playing WoW after Cataclysm.
Yeah.
So I bought Cataclysm. Back then, you could still go to your local GameStop and you could wait at midnight and you could download it. And I took 2 days off work and we were going to play all night long and I was going to like raid and whatever. And I played a Worgen. And I was like, I cannot wait to see what mount they get in Worgen. Like as the
spoiler warning.
and the thing is like that was like a big deal when you were in. It was like a cosmetic item that like your mount like kind of like was a part of your personality. Your mount said like were you on a lion or were you on something. Final Fantasy does a great example of this. Final Fantasy 14 critically acclaimed video game. Should definitely try it out. A lot of text. If you're a reader, don't play it. That's why my brother quit. He's like, it's too much reading. But like you can get all of these different mounts in that, right? So I paid the game. I paid $59 or $64.99 or whatever the amount was. Downloaded it. Was like, I'm gonna get to the level that you can like get your mount, and I was so excited about it. And for Worgens, for whatever reason, instead of getting to like 30 and being able to have a mount, they made it because you're a werewolf that you just get on all fours and you run. And I was like, lazy development engineering, I'm done. And I logged out and I have never played World War.
Because of that? That was like the
final straw for
catalyst,
me. Because I felt like I got cheated. Yeah. I felt like I paid all that money and I wanted this thing that mattered a lot to the type of player that I was, and I got cheated. And I was like, I'm done. I've paid $19.99 a month to play this video game. I have bought every expansion. I have been a raider. I've gone to BlizzCon. I've like done all of these things. And the one thing that you could have given me was like, make it like a haunted carriage. Like there were so many cool ideas you could have gone and then let them run.
Yeah.
You could have had an and of like, or you don't even have to use them out and you can just run. But I felt so like just heated that like I got that experience cheated on me, and I just was like, I'm never gonna play again.
Well, that's actually
I logged out.
That's actually the precursor of what I was going to say, because we were just saying that, like, you know, subscription for a live service model makes sense because you feel like you're paying into, you know, the content that gets produced.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I felt like that was worth it.
Yeah.
Vanilla, BC, even Wrath. I mean, Wrath was a little rough because like that last stretch of Wrath where it was ICC and Ruby Sanctum before Cataclysm came out, it was like I think a year of like no content. And I mean, subscriptions were falling off a cliff because people were like, why am I paying money to do the
Where's
same
the content? Yeah.
Exactly. So that's
It
kind of
got
where I'm
stale.
going. Where I'm going with this is you're making me pay for the game. You're making me pay a subscription. And then now it's been like the reason I stopped playing WoW more than anything was because like the seasonal model of you're going to pay money to then after 4 or 5 months, we're going to do this new patch, which basically just like invalidates everything that you previously did.
Yeah.
New raid.
Yeah.
That's about it. Like a new
Yeah.
raid. And continue the carousel. I was like, okay, so what you've done is you've turned my game, which used to be like a social platform for like, we would get on Ventrilo back in the day for those kids before Discord.
Leroy
And
Jeggett, yeah.
we'd make guilds and all these other things. And like, they were constantly like, Vanilla WoW had like 3 tier raids.
Yeah.
3 raids of tiers.
Yeah, we were in a raiding guild. That's where we
3
met.
tiers of raids, sorry.
My original X, back then was Twitter, account was started because we needed a place to coordinate our raids with our guildies. And then when we went to BlizzCon, we needed to find out where everybody was, and Twitter was the way that we did that. But it was specifically to communicate to the people that we met in the game. Like that was like how you met your friends. It was how you made all of your like social connections for people that had all these things in common with you. And I still think, to your point, you were referencing an article that came out that says 92% of gamers are playing games that are older than 2 years old.
That would make sense.
They're like new games are still selling.
But the 2 years is kind of a small metric because that's like Fortnite, that's League of Legends, that's like basically most games. I mean,
League
now.
of Legends is 15 years old. So
Yeah. Well, WoW is what, 25?
Yeah. So, but they're basically saying that the majority of gamers are still playing games they bought 2 years ago.
Or not playing games.
Well, so this, if you read in the article, it does say that new games are still selling, but people are playing them as an executable experience and then bopping, right? Because if you think about the price of games, like if you go look at like old ads, the price of like new like Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis consoles was like between $39.99 and $59.99, which was, and they're still now $59.99. So like the games way back then were actually a lot more expensive when you look at like inflation than they are today. And I think generally like people will go like, it'd cost me $30 to go see a movie, and that's a 3-hour experience. And if this is a 20-hour game, I've made my money.
I think video games is always the cost benefit analysis to playing video games versus any other sort of medium or media has clearly always been the favored towards video games. Duly noted. $15 a month, and I would get how many hours of content every month from WoW. The problem though is not necessarily like the value for buck, but it's like the meaningfulness of that time being spent. I do not appreciate feeling like a hamster on a wheel to the next thing.
Yeah.
Make me feel like if I feel like I'm wasting my time playing, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
I used to feel like I wasn't wasting my time playing video games. I would play Final Fantasy X for like 5-6 hours straight.
Yeah.
I would get up and be like, whoa, that was an experience. I'm so glad I did it.
Time flew by. I looked up and now it's 3 a.m.
By the time I quit WoW, I was like, the game had never been better. Like, we were doing high keys in Mythic Plus, and it was so competitive, and the boys, we were sweats, you know what I mean? So, like, in terms of that competitive edge and everything, like, the game's never been better, but it's also never been more empty. Like, the whole time I'm doing M+, I'm pushing these keys, and I'm like, literally in 2 months, none of this will fucking matter. My rating's gonna get reset.
Long-term.
What the fuck am I doing? And I felt like I was wasting my time.
So we I think there's like 2 parts of why people are doing the way that they're doing now. And so one is like, there are so many games that are coming out that people cannot afford to pay to play every single game.
Yes.
So one part of it is like advertising actually matters. Marketing really, really matters, right? And like how hyped are people? The name of studios actually carries a lot of weight on like where is it coming from. Indie games have a really hard time getting people into the market and being able to do that. So
I would make the argument that it's never been better than today.
well, I think the ROI on it is higher, but like for them to infiltrate the market and to be aware in the sea of opportunities, like a lot of like now anybody can make a game. Back then that wasn't the case.
Okay, well then how do you explain like a Valheim, which comes out of nowhere, just comes out, early access. I think early access is also
influencers. That's exactly where that came
meaning
from.
they saw the game first, played it, said this is the shit.
Yes.
Made a YouTube video
about it. And then people started playing it. And that's marketing though. So marketing, whether you're paying
third party marketing, but I agree.
But I mean it is a type of marketing. It's actually community marketing. That's like my whole job. So I feel pretty good about that. But
it's like very valuable.
Marketing really, really matters. So that's like one piece of it is like it's people have finite resources, people have less discretionary income than they've ever had before. And so getting people to feel strongly enough and excited enough about your game to spend the money, unless they're like on an Xbox Game Pass. So but let's talk about PC players because I think console players are a very different breed.
You peasants.
So like PC players need to feel the game's either gotta be free, so like a low barrier to entry, or if there's a paid version of it, they have to be so excited. Like right now, if you were like the standard person, I would bet that the standard person like has no idea what's happening with Fable because Fable's been like teased for the last 5 years. And I, as a diehard Fable fan, am like, give me this fucking... They could tell me the game's $89.99 and I would pay it. I would pay it and I would take a week off work and I don't even care if the game is bad. I've been waiting so long to play this game. I'm like, gonna do it, right? That's rare. That like capitalization on that like fandom is really hard to come by. Because
also,
you have
the
to build
variable
it.
is that's like nuance of like nostalgia for you because you were younger when you were playing.
So let's go back.
New gamers, younger gamers now,
they don't have that.
They got Zoomer brains. They're just doing the next skin on Fortnite.
So
they're not
that
looking at
gives
any of that
me
shit.
the other half of this. So like we'll talk about the infiltration of like the success of games and like how you have to like get attention from people. But then you have the other thing, which is like why are they playing games? They are playing games because they found their sense of community. It is why the majority of adults, it is like, I was looking at the statistic the other day because I'm like doing a bunch of like work in my own job about, what are we trying to do here? Like in an existential crisis world, like what the fuck am I doing with my job, right? And so I've been doing a lot of like psychological research, a lot of research into like the cost of marketing is rising. And so what happens when we're building the value of community? And it's very easy to be like, well, people want to feel recognized. People want to feel heard. People want to feel great about the company that they're spending their time or money with. But the other fact of it is like very true human nature, which is about 60% of people have never moved out of their hometown. Why is that? Because your family is there, because your roots are there. Like imagine if you had to pick up your wife and your daughter and your kid and just leave.
It'd be easy.
Okay.
I'm the 40%. I'm the 40%.
But that's the thing is like most people, like when I was a single mom and they were like, hey, we want you to like move to San Francisco to come work for Twitch. And I was like, exciting opportunity. Who's going to help me with my kid? Like I can't afford to do this on my own. I can't afford to not have my network. I'm a very introverted person. It's hard for me to just walk into a room and make friends. My comfort area is here. And so when you have a game like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy or The Sims or Minecraft or Fortnite, where you've built a community of people that like, hey, every Friday night we squat up and we play this game, that's a comfort to you. That feels like a place where you've established a digital home that you want to come back to when you're stressed. That feels good. It feels rewarding. And it's not even about the game. Like really shitty games have really strong communities because people have done that. There's a comment in that PC Gamer article. And it like, thank you. His name was like JCLW 92 35 60, whatever his name was.
Unsung hero.
Right. Unsung hero, like this, like to spit in the deep truth. And he said, games make community and communities make the game. And it's like, that is why people go back to those old games because their friends are there, their experiences are, it feels nostalgic for me to revisit this place that like, oh man, I remember the first time I went in this dungeon and da-da-da-da. And like, this is that place where Leroy Jenkins happened. Like that matters to us like psychologically. And so I think when you not only have a good game, it doesn't even need to be a great game. There are really, really good games that tanked and really like mediocre games that like really thrive. And it is because people were able to find through the game and through all of the things around the game, a sense of shared home, connection, community that keep them coming back. So like there might be a new MMO and they're going to leave and they're going to try it to see what the hype is. And then when they're burned out, guess what they're doing? They're going right back to the place that feels like home.
Yeah.
And I think that's what most of us want in a world of uncertainty. We're getting older. We don't have as much time. I don't have fucking energy to spend 2,000 hours going like I did in Final Fantasy 14 and like learning all the mechanics. So like an MMO sounds really fun. I'm not buying a new one because I'm not relearning everything. I'm gonna go right back to Final Fantasy.
Also, I don't want to invest into it.
I don't want to invest. I've got $300 dollars. Way more than that in Final Fantasy.
The last like truly marvelous moment I had in gaming was where like I was like, holy fuck, grip me by the balls. Classic WoW's relaunch.
Oh yeah,
Classic WoW's
talk
relaunch.
about a grip on like gaming culture. Is like everybody.
I took a month of PTO.
Yeah,
took a month
because people were like, "This is like what got me into it."
Oh, dude,
right?
I started it. I did all the things that I wish I would have done when I was 8 years old, like 9-year-old Arion. So like I took a month of PTO. I made my human warrior because I already knew everything and all this other stuff. And I was like level 60 in like a week, and I was like the raid leader. I was like, let's go, boys, MC, you know? And for that month, I was like, holy shit. And that whole time of Classic WoW was just so fucking fun. And it was just so much like the guild was so tight-knit. Yeah, it was 40 fucking dads on Tuesdays and Thursday nights, you know, and then the off night for Ani. Then what fucking crushed it more than anything, and this goes back to the financialization of video games. BC gets announced, which is obviously that's what's going to happen. Some people were talking about like, you know, Classic Plus. I personally feel like the idea of Classic Plus is just flawed because that's what expansions are. Yeah. Like the Plus, the Classic Plus is like, where are we going to go? Outland? Guess where we went? The very next expansion, you know what I mean? Or like, they'll be like, we want another raid and all that. But the problem is, I don't think people think about like power creeps. Like when you have 3 tiers in one expansion, by the time you get to the 4th tier, 5th tier, you got guys with like 10,000 health and the guys with like 3,000 health. It's just such a delta. Sorry. So when BC Classic got announced, they announced the pass, which like was like a level boost and like all this other shit. And I'm like, you guys missed the fucking point. This is a completely different demographic of people than are playing like retail WoW. Yeah. And that's what caused me when they announced BC Classic. I got on Discord and I go, guys, it made me feel like
they suckered you.
Not that they suckered me. I felt for the moment, for at least that year and a half, that I was like, fuck yeah, gaming is back. Yeah. Like, gaming is back. We're going to go to BC, we're going to go to Wrath, and you know what? I don't care after that, because I got like 4 years of gaming out of it. You know what I mean? After that, do whatever you want. But when the very next expansion was already back, and then, by the way, by the time Wrath came out, they did the fucking WoW token in Classic WoW. And I was like, you guys just can't help yourself. You ruined this game, and this game is so easy to not fucking ruin. It really is.
I think
for all us old dads out there, I'm 32 now and I still want to play WoW. Stop fucking up my game.
I've been in not in my current role. So disclaimer, this was back when I was on the platform side when I was at Twitch. But I mean there were times where we would get into conversations. I remember one, I'm not going to give away what the feature was, but they came in and they were like, we're going to do this monetized feature. And I was like, no. We're not. It was actually the first time that I was ever like super unprofessional and went in a meeting where they're like, we're going to do this. And I go, literally verbatim, I go, or we could not do that because that is a terrible idea.
The finance guys got in, said this is going to increase revenue. And you're like, no, it's not.
Right. And well,
because you're going to diminish the value of the product.
And that's the thing is it's like you want to create effectively a pay to win marketing strategy for creators. And the entire like value system of what we've done has been that, you know, the meme of like, this website is free. And when you start monetizing things like that, it creates a really inauthentic, you know, version. Like there are lots of programs that do, you know, creator codes, right? Or affiliate marketing. And I recently consulted with a pretty well-known developer, and they said, you know, they were wanting some help on how to work with their influencer strategy. And they'd said like, should we do like an affiliate marketing code? And I was like, look, a lot of places do it, but you're going to get people who start selling it because they're trying to get the money instead of talking about what authentically like drives them towards this. And games and platforms like Twitch or X do the same thing where they're like, we're going to monetize something that should be. An example would be like, imagine if you could pay $100 and put your stream for 5 minutes on the front page carousel of Twitch. You've effectively just made a pay-to-win strategy.
No, you're going to create a market of that because then it's not going to be $100. And people with more money will be willing to pay more money for that.
But that's what I'm saying. And so instead of being like, instead of being something that like first carousel that you see is either personally curated because, you know, Twitch used to do these things called incubator programs where they would do like World of Warcraft week. And they would throw World of Warcraft streamers in that carousel for people to discover that were like curated by Twitch
That's
because
smart.
we knew who they were and it felt really good for streamers. They were getting promoted. We were making sure that quality content was getting in service to the people who were coming to
Sure,
the
the
website.
games company loved that their
The games
game
companies
was
would love it
being
because we were
emphasized.
building community. Like it was a win-win-win-win-win for everybody. Or sometimes when we wouldn't have those incubator programs, if you just go to that directory, you're served algorithmically with something we think you would like based on your watch history, based on what we know. Your, whatever. These are people we think that you would like, or people that were featured there for whatever reason. And so all of a sudden, if you like make not only is a pay to win strategy, which like feels really gross and inauthentic, the other thing that happens is like people's quality actually goes down because they're getting served recommendations not based on who's best for them or what we think is a really good experience, but just based on who can pay for it.
Yeah.
And that's not great. People don't want that. And especially younger consumers, statistically, the after value, like how cheap is it? The next most popular thing that drives their spending choices, do you know what it is? Company values. So after the price of goods, which is like, it was like 60 or 80%, like 18% according to this one survey, were buying based on what they thought the values of a company was. So younger generations are actually looking at a company and being like, that company does not align with my values. I am choosing not to shop there.
I don't know if I believe that.
Younger generations,
all.
though, for you, probably not. But for
No,
younger
even
generations,
for
that's
younger-
true.
Okay, the kid, when they start boycotting like Apple phones and all this other stuff, then I'll start believing that. But like, or they'll sit there and they'll talk about capitalism, all this stuff, but they're buying everything off Amazon. Like, I think that sounds good,
It's
and like they
different than
think
if
they
you-
are, but they're not. Theory and application are completely different. How do I know? Look at the market.
But
The Mag 7 is the Mag 7 for a reason.
But similarly to what you were saying about the monetization thing, if I think that a company is making predatory movements to monetize my gaming experience, I won't play their games anymore. And so, like,
Maybe isolated, like micro, yeah. But then at the same time, I mean, I'm sure if you were to look at like Blizzard right now, I'm sure they've never made more money than how they're making right now off WoW. Like even though subscriptions are down because they've overmonetized, and that's where I was going to get. Like, have you ever heard of the financial term equilibrium price?
yeah.
It's essentially like what is the best price to generate the most amount of
Well,
profitability
you're looking
and
at
revenue.
long-term value. In marketing, we would call that LTV, so long-term value of a company. So if you have players who've played your game for 10 years but they're never monetizing, they're actually not that valuable to you.
As like that one whale
As the
who just
one
came in
whale
and
who
wants to
came
buy
in
all
and
the
bought
mounts.
right. But again, if the game makes the community and the community makes the game, those whales are coming in and there's not a long-term sense of community. Eventually, over time, you will start to deprecate. So you need both. You don't want only whales and you don't want only people who are never paying to play the game. You want a mix of both of those people to supplement that ecosystem. And so when you're over monetizing, back to the gaming thing, but like generally speaking, yes, people are boycotting with dollars.
I also need to do like a strong disclaimer of like my hypocrisy because we've been talking about Blizzard and its trajectory, but like one of the things that I did do is like Blizzard was a part of my private brokerage.
Yeah.
So like I owned Activision Blizzard and I knew like I would buy extra stock before an expansion launch because I knew that the stock price would go up because the revenues of that quarter would come in and like the market would react accordingly. So like I will separate like finance Arion and then like gamer Arion. Finance Arion's never been happier. Thank you, Bobby. Appreciate you, brother.
Yeah.
Thanks for selling out. I got a great
But as
payday.
a gamer, no,
But as
sir.
gamer Arion, I was like, dude, fuck you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just
Disclaimer, I have not followed Activision Blizzard or anything. I don't know anything about them.
Oh yeah, this has everything I say.
Arion can
Everything
speak.
I say.
That's
I
his
speak on
own
my
personal
behalf.
opinion, and I am here as his friend to acknowledge and empathize with his feelings.
You in no way, shape, or form endorse
no,
any of the comments that I
I
make.
don't know anything about them, and I am happy if you're happy.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How important is games journalism?
Well, define games journalism.
People that journalism games.
Is an influencer games journalism?
No, that okay. So I think content creation is like a very broad term, and I understand what you're going.
You're
with this.
talking about like actual like PC Gamer magazine, Game Informer, like the people who are out there, Metacritic.
In the year
like,
of our Lord 2025,
Yeah.
how important are the people that use older sources or older forms of media to get their point across versus newer forms of media, such as a content creator on
So-
YouTube or Twitch or what have you?
I will disclaimer this by saying that type of work tends to fall on the public relations side of the house, where like my personal job and like experience and like my opinions don't sit on that side.
Yeah.
I mean, I can like generally tell you, like put my Aureylian gamer hat on and not my like Aaron works in a video game publisher. I mean, they do matter. I think people want to see a number on a score, and influencers don't generally do that. It's very hard to tell sentiment of a game very quickly if you're like a gamer and you're looking for reviews to go be like, what does somebody think about XYZ game? Because you've got to scroll Reddit. You have to like, I mean, now ChatGPT, you can be like, go scan the internet and tell me like on average.
But I don't think they're doing that. I think
no, consumers aren't. They are still looking at like a Metacritic score and going like, what is the score? What did Game Informer give it? What did PC Magazine give it? They are looking at a number of a score.
I don't think so, Aaron.
They are.
The majority.
They're not. Here's what I will say. Are they as relevant today as they were 10 years ago? No. Are they still relevant and important? Yes.
Let me ask you this. If Claire Obscure comes out and an Asmongold or a Shroud or someone comes out and says, this game is the shit, go buy it. That is marketing gold. That's worth way more than any article, any Metacritic score, any.
But you didn't ask me that. You didn't ask me what was more important. You asked, are they still important?
No. Okay. So, I actually think they're not because of what I said.
So I think that there are two different things. So there are, just like I said, like nothing is either wholly true or wholly this.
Correct.
So there are some people that still look at traditional games journalism for reviews to understand what they should be looking at and like if the game is worth their dollars. A lot of people will now actually look at Steam reviews a lot.
That's
the game is on
so
Steam.
that's what I do. Exactly.
So they'll look at Steam reviews because they want
other people
community to crowdsource because there is a distrust in journalism, and that's not even with video games. It's just the media generally. There is a distrust in that. So are influencers more powerful? Yes. Is games journalism irrelevant? No.
I don't know if I agree. It's a pie chart. Like it's 100% like relevancy, right? And if one is eating up more of that pie chart by definition, then the other one is like receiving less of it.
Yeah.
So I just think that like you asked a good question when you were like, hey, you didn't ask me that. You said like, is it important or not? But like by definition, I think it's not important because that exists. Like yes, content creators are more important than journalists. But what I'm trying to say is actually content creators are the most important and journalists aren't important at all. Because content creators.
I would disagree.
Okay.
But I mean, I think
I'll give you one thing that you said, the Steam review. I agree with that. But that wouldn't necessarily be like pertinent to like journalists. But again, that's more of like a sample size of purchasers.
So again, we know from consumer purchase behaviors that the number one determination of what makes somebody buy a video game today is an influencer. Okay. Like that is the most popular way that somebody determines whether or not they should buy a game, because it's not just a like 4 out of 5 stars. They can literally watch somebody and go, is that person having fun? Yes or no? Does the game look hard? Do I like the visuals? Do I like the mechanics? Is the UI there? Do I feel like it has the accessibility benefits that I have? You can go watch a stream for 15 minutes and being like, I've decided whether or not I want to play that game.
Agreed.
That is a more valuable, authentic way to judge whether or not I'm going to do that. Again, consumers view influencers as more trustworthy than media. They feel like that can be biased, it can be overrated, it can be bought. And so they're more likely to do that because they also believe with the influencers that they watch, hey, that influencer is like me. That person likes the games I like. That person, like the number of times that somebody would come into my channel and I would play games like Minecraft or Stardew Valley or the Botanicals game that I just played. I liked those types of games. And so when I would play a new game and somebody would come into my channel and be like, do you like this game? And if I said yes, they'd be like, okay, well, you like cozy games. I also like cozy games. Did you like Disney Dreamlight Valley? And I would be like, oh my gosh, I loved it. Well, I knew how much you played Animal Crossing. How does it compare? Actually, it's very similar. Here are the things. Okay, cool. Well, I know that if I felt that way and you feel that way, then it's a good game for me. Because a journalist is there to judge on more academic level criterion of like what makes a game good versus an influencer will be like, this UI pisses me off and I hate it. It's like not even rational.
I vibe or I don't vibe.
Yeah, this game passed the vibe test or it didn't. Or like, I felt like the story was too inauthentic or I blah, 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 blah. And so, I mean, influencers are more, just again, statistically speaking, more successful in that conversion of like what somebody decides to purchase a game or not than they would be either towards traditional media or by reading like a traditional journalism review. Again, journalists do contribute to somebody's willingness to purchase. Those scores are heavily weighted, right? It's not like a movie is good or not good because it won an Emmy. great movies don't win Emmys, but people still want to go to the Emmys. They still want that recognition. They still want that validation. It's very similar.
I guess maybe I'm just a little biased on this one. I just
Arion the journalist, distrust the journalist.
I'm not a journalist.
Live long enough to become the villain, you know?
Die the hero or I live long enough to be. For you at this point of your like career, would it be safe to say that like video games has now eclipsed like do you still look at video games as your job? Yeah. Or is your job and video games are now something that you can do for fun, or is it still your job?
I would say it's both. The type of games that I support, like I work at a company whose values are very much in line with mine. And I can say this as like the person who like leads community. Like community is very important to the company, and I have a lot of support at all levels of the business to be like, hey, we need to do these things that matter. It's rare. It didn't happen to me in my early days at Twitch, and it happened to me a lot in my later days at Twitch, where we would get into those arguments about like that monetization model is really, really bad and I don't like that. And when they're solving for monetization and I'm solving for community value, we're never going to come into agreement because our value systems are like very different. I don't have that experience in my job today. That said, I love our lore, I love Arcane, I love our champs, and I love our agents, and I love the storytelling that our company does. I am not a diehard competitive gamer. I'm not a sweaty gamer, right? So I like our games, I have fun with our games, but if you're gonna ask me like what new game, I'm the Fable, I'm the Witcher 3, you know what I mean? Like those are the types of games. I'm the Baldur's Gate. Like I love story, like immersible, like those types of games. So I play our games, I like our games, but if I'm like, I'm going to dive into something to like vibe, I'm playing other games. I would say I have played in the last year, like the least amount of video games I've ever played. And that's not because I don't love video games. Like when Fable comes out, I will 100% be taking PTO, and he will probably not see me for like a week. Which he doesn't know. He now knows that like I will be sweaty gamer who will not shower for like a week. He will see the gremlin like come out. I will be playing the Fable for a week. But I've also in the last year since like I was first on the podcast been putting so much effort into like my outside life that's not in ones and zeros, and spending a lot more time on balance and mental health. And when you work in video games, you can still play video games, but it cannot be all consuming because it becomes very easy for it to like overtake your life and to lose perspective on how bad a problem is or what really matters. And I did that for such a long time. And I think that contributed to a lot of like just my overall unhappiness. And so it's not because I don't love games. It's not because I don't love our games. It's just because I have tried to spend more time in person. I've tried to spend, how many times have we hung out? Like, try to spend more time with people. My own, my daughter.
Our last dinner was a lot of fun. I'll just say that.
Our last dinner was a lot of fun.
We got to do that again sometime.
Yeah. So, I think that's probably why. So I view video games as a passion. I view it as a hobby. I view it as my job. But I don't view it as the most important thing. I think it's important to my life. But I don't know that it's like, I don't like sweaty gaming.
Well, I think balance is needed, and I think you're raising like a good point of like maybe it is like us changing in our lives. Like, of course, there's going to be a difference from 10-year-old Arion, 20-year-old Arion, 30-year-old Arion. I could tell you, 10-year-old Arion had, you know what I mean? Like I had no responsibility. 20-year-old Arion, barely any responsibility. 30-year-old Arion, I feel like I have the weight of the world on my shoulders. And whenever I'm playing video games, it almost feels like I've strictly now switched to games that I can pause because I have a daughter. Yeah. So like I can't play WoW anymore. I can't commit 40 minutes unanswered to a Mythic Plus key because if my daughter comes in and goes, "Daddy, I want to do this," guess what's happening? Yeah. Your
priorities have shifted.
We're not going to make this key, boys. Sorry. You know what I mean? So I need a game that I can pause. The nature of the games that I do partake in now has completely changed. It doesn't, but that's not why I have this dissolution or this like growing like discontent with video games. That is because I feel like the financialization of this medium has just become grotesque. Like there's a gluttony, there's a greed to this that has become too much.
I remember now, I actually recently did purchase a game probably like 3 or 4 months ago called Tiny Glade. And it's a cute little indie game. It's like very peaceful music. And it is a game and all you do is build castles. That's all you do. You can build little villages, you can build little castles. It's not like Minecraft. You don't have to go collect resources. There's no money in the game. It literally is like soft, beautiful background music and like blowing grass in the fields. There's little sheep and little birds. And you just can drag your mouse and just build little things and make little towers and like plant little trees. And that's all you do. And it's the most peaceful experience because I can go at my own pace. It's very calm. There's no like, do this really fast, go collect this, you got to go do this. There's no grind. There's zero grind in the game. I can pause it when I want to. I can put 10 hours in at one time making something really crazy. I can spend 5 minutes in between meetings if I need like a mental health break. It's pretty rare that you can find that type of game that's like, I think it's like $19 and you just like play it and it's forever. Like it just is what it is forever.
You know, Valheim, I don't know if you ever played Valheim, but Valheim, when I first played it versus when I recently played it, so like every time the next biome comes out, I re-download it, hop that bad boy back up.
That was me with Valhalla.
Yeah, so
AC.
The Ashlands came out and like I re-downloaded it. I was like, all right, let's go play this. And that was very pleasant to see that like they now have sliders on the world. And sliders are like a view into your psyche because you get to see like on a metric left to right what you value. So like I made the damage that everything did like 2x. I wanted it to feel like Dark Souls.
Yeah.
But then I made it so that my portals, I could carry the minerals through the portals because I'm like, I don't want to fucking boat back and forth. Like, fuck that shit. You know what I mean? And then I also made it that like the number of materials that I get is higher because I was like, there are aspects of gaming that I like. I like difficulty. I want to be able to pause it. I don't want to sit there and hack at like an ore for 50 minutes. I just don't care. Like maybe 10-year-old Ariane would love that shit. Now I'm just like, all right, I got an hour and I don't want to spend it hitting this tree.
In an hour? Yeah.
It's funny that I think maybe you'd agree with me or disagree with me. It used to be that there was like this preset difficulty to video games that like it was a one size fits all, and kind of Dark Souls was like, in my opinion, the pioneer of that, where they were like, this game is really fucking hard, get good, right? GIT, GUD.
Some of them, yeah.
Okay. Now I feel like more and more games are experimenting and adopting this like fluctuating difficulty where like perhaps you might not be the best shooter and like maybe we do auto lock on.
I played at Baldur's Gate story mode.
Yes. Okay.
I don't, because here was the thing, like it was really frustrating to play Baldur's Gate and be like, I have an hour.
Demolished.
I mean, I'm back at school. So like I work a very long job. I'm a mom. I'm back at school. Like I have all this stuff going on. If I like the rare chance that I get time to play a video game, it's probably going to be like I have 2 hours here or I have an hour there, or like I don't have 6 hours. Like I used to get done at work at like, 5, have dinner, put my kid down at, 8 or 9 o'clock, and I'd play games from 9 till 3 a.m.
Like a healthy adult.
Grind, right? I would grind. I don't have that anymore. And so I don't want to get in a game and be like, I've played for an hour and I've progressed 0.5% through the story. Yeah. Like I'm here, I want the story, I want to move forward. I do not care how hard it is to kill the boss. I don't care. Let me just kill the boss and move forward. I play games on story mode. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not here to be like a sweaty gamer. I'm here to experience it in the very limited amount of time that I have. And so, I think that there are games, games generally speaking, even Minecraft in its beta had difficulty modes on it. And so games have always had, even Mario Kart had like a slider, how easy or fast, the CCs you want the track to be. So the difficulty level has been there.
Yeah, that's a throwback. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You just hit me with nostalgia. 50, 100, 150.
Yeah. So like games have always had some level of like a difficulty mode in them. I think some people really want the like, no, I want games that are intentionally difficult.
Bust my balls. That's what I want.
That's what I want. I want that like the grind. I want to like feel that sense of achievement when I like did something. Like Lyric did that, was it Dark Souls, where he went on, I'm going to beat the boss, no hit. And he played it for 21 hours straight. Because he was like, I will beat this boss in Dark Souls without getting hit. And he was like, I'm doing it. And he failed, and he failed, and he failed, and he failed, and he failed. And he kept doing it over and over again because he wanted to be like, I beat it without getting hit.
There was a guy who played all 3 Dark Souls. 1, then 2, then 3. No hit runs.
Yes. Yeah.
Whoever you are,
like, but
holy shit.
So people like want that experience. And I think that's great. But like, and I think sometimes people see the word like accessibility, or they hear the word accessibility, and I think they kind of roll their eyes. But like, literally, accessibility just means more people can experience the game. And easy modes or like difficulty modes or those sliders are what allows more people to play. If Baldur's Gate was just difficult, I would never have been able to play it because I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. I like just don't want to do it. And I have now done 3 runs in Baldur's Gate.
You know who actually did it really well, and I'm going to give them the roses on this? Wow, Blizzard. With M+, with Mythic Plus. And honestly, rating in general. But I would say that in Mythic Plus was the best way to do it because what happened was like up to 15 keys when I played, up to like key 15, you would get the maximum reward, right? So like, and 15 for some people might be difficult. For us, we would push like 25, 26 keys, right? So like we were like way above that. But like I always thought to myself, like if you just are doing this for like the reward, there's an adequate skill barrier there.
Yeah.
But like to be completely honest with you, I could like carry people. I'd be like, listen, boys, it's a 15 key, just chill out. I got this. You know what I mean? And then once you get to like 20 keys, it's like, okay, everybody's got to be on their game. By 25 key, if there's one mistake on one pull, we're not timing this, right?
Yeah.
So like that ratcheted it up. And then it allowed, I think that's the way to do it is like, if you're going to play video games, create it to where there's always that bragging right because that'll allow for people to hyper focus and like really find, because there are people that love to min-max. I'm one of those guys. Like I do whenever I am playing video games like that. I was like, look, how can, what's our path? What are we going to pull? What are we not going to pull? Who's going to use what cooldown when? I like that shit. But I also realize that I'm like the minority of people in doing that. And like the average person is like, listen, I just want the gear. I just want the mount. I just want the loot. I just want my chest at the end of the week.
And it's why ranked systems work really well. Like League has a ranked system and people are like, hey, I want to go from gold to challenger. I want to be at a higher, but there's also, you can play unranked.
So one of the things that you were saying to me not too long ago was like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm like so busy. I'm doing this Harvard program.
Yeah.
That's a very prestigious university. And I would be curious to understand what and why.
Yeah. So I had done...
And how, actually.
Yeah. So Harvard, they have Harvard Business Online. So it's a very scaled like approach. And Harvard Business School does a lot of different things. So you can basically go back or go to school. And you can get and complete a course, just like a class in college on something. And then you get like a little certificate at the end. So there were things that one, because I knew that it was like stuff I wanted to be able to do in work. And 2, I wanted to start combating perceptions of myself. So for a really long time in my life, I would say like, I'm not book smart, I'm people smart, or I'm creative smart, right? And I would use math as the example. Like I'm terrible at math, I hate math, I'm not good at math. Well, in my job, somebody comes to you and says, players or Twitch users are unhappy about this. And you'd go, well, how many people? And they'd give you like a sample number. Well, we surveyed 500 people. Is that enough? Like, I don't know, right? And so as a leader, I wanted to know, like, statistically speaking, like, what is a good sample size? How do I know when data is relevant and not? So I went to Harvard Business Online and I took a class on business analytics so that I could start to understand, like, what was good about myself. And I was like, oh, I, like, thrived in that class. I, like, killed it. I had the equivalent of an A. Like, I am a very smart person. I am smart. I am book smart, you know? So you can do that through Harvard and you can do like individual, like I have again, a certification in business analytics. I have one in disruptive strategy, which is kind of like a marketing principle. It's a psychological thing. And then I had one that I did that was a much more difficult course, which was an accept only. You would apply, you had to be accepted. It was like a limited group of 20. And it was a leadership course. And then I finished that course and then I graduated that course with distinction. So I was in the top rank of that class. So I had done them before and I had liked that. My job offers education reimbursement. And so I, in my role, do a lot of community type stuff. So I have a corporate communications degree. I have a nonprofit admin degree. I have a lot of experience in social media, influencer strategy, XYZ brand, but I don't have a marketing degree. So like the next like level of my career, if I wanted to move up, would probably be like a VP of marketing or a CMO at a smaller company or whatever. But even if I never left my job, being more familiar with basic marketing principles actually does make me better at community, social media influencer, because it helps me understand how, in principle, it ties into
the theory to the application.
Correct. So earlier this year, I decided that that was like my next like thing I wanted to do just for my own like intellectual curiosity, for my own like proving to myself that I could do it. And I learned that the courses that I would take, they had one in brand value, which is like brand marketing, and they had one in digital marketing, which covers actually a lot of like social media, influencer, etc. And if you were to do those two plus another class, you could actually get a specialization in marketing certificate. So it's not like a marketing degree, but it is very much like this person took so many classes on this specific topic that Harvard is going to say that they have a specialization in that area of focus. And the cost to do all of that was almost the exact amount of education reimbursement I get at work. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And I'm so smart, but sometimes I am such an idiot. And I was like, hey, if I start right now, I can do all of these classes back to back to back in 20 weeks. And I can finish like the week that we're going on vacation. I can finish the week that we go on vacation. And so I have for the last 19 weeks been grinding through every single one of these courses. So I finished the first one, passed it, finished the second one, passed it. I'm on the final one right now. And I will finish that in the next week. So
it seems like personal development is important for you.
Yeah.
But there seems to be like, I think personal development is important for most humans. So that's not really a distinguishing factor.
Yeah.
But there seems to be this like connotation or this added value in established curriculum or, I guess you don't have a degree, right? Like, did you ever?
Yeah. I have 2 college degrees.
So then why is this so important to you then?
So I have a college.
Forgive me. Let me rephrase my
Yeah.
question. Why is it so important to get like this Harvard certificate or this Harvard degree?
Well, I wanted to.
Because you're already a learned woman.
Yeah. But I wanted to learn more about the marketing side of things because I didn't spend a lot of time in marketing when I was in college. And I can tell you for a fact, I'm already better at my job for having finished these first 2 courses.
Of course.
There are things that are just ways to think about solving a problem that I was never going to just accidentally learn at work. Certain things about how to articulate the value of what I do in my job. Like now, community influencers, social media, marketing programs are looking at the work I do as almost the most valuable way to start developing consumers. And they are building theories and structures around how to be successful at those things that I never learned because those structures didn't exist when I started doing my job. Like I started in the early pioneer of like just figuring it out. And so I wanted to learn about it anyway. So if I'm going to like pay to learn, I might as well go to a university that's prestigious so that when I finish it, I can get, as like shallow as it sounds, the street cred of being able to be like, not only did I go back and learn, I did it at Harvard.
Well, okay, so forgive me because that's actually what I was going to ask more or less is like, I feel like in today's day and age, you can basically teach yourself anything you want to if you're interested in that field. I think, and you hit the nail on the head, the reason why people kind of go through established forms of curriculum through the education system now more than anything is for that certificate, for that piece of paper that basically says like, hey, I'm legit.
Yeah. It matters when you start to get higher in your career. Like I hire people now without college degrees all the time.
Same.
Because I can actually look at their work and figure
like
out
for entry level positions.
Yeah. And as those people establish themselves and they've got 3 years, 5 years, 10 years of career, you can look back at somebody's portfolio and say, is that true? When you start getting into the like director, senior director, VP level, it becomes harder to articulate just what did you do and more about what would you do in the future? How would you lead us through very complicated business? And like, that is not something you can be like, oh, I'll just figure it out. Like it does actually matter, your portfolio, your career. And so I've gotten advice from multiple people. And again, I'm not like looking to leave my job, not doing any of that. I wanted to just be better at my job. But it doesn't hurt to then have a like, hey, if anybody ever doubted that the community manager doesn't know what she's talking about when it comes to paid media or user acquisition or anything else, like I've got a cert now that says not only did I actually go learn about it, I passed and I got a certification in it. So like it's just a reinforcement that not only can I talk the talk, but I've shown you that I can walk the walk because I actually completed it. So it does help with when you're talking to somebody new that people are really good at bullshitting their way through interviews. It's just a thing that's like a validation of like, I'm not only going to tell you that I'm good at something, but like, look at what I finished to be able to showcase that I actually also do understand these concepts.
While I agree with I agree with the majority of what you said, I actually, the 2 points I'm curious on, one, let's work our way back. I actually think it's very difficult to bullshit your way through an interview. Because
Oh.
the second I get technical, I can tell people.
So, but you work in a technical based job.
Forgive me. Yes,
So you
you're
work
right.
in a
This is a little
technical based
different.
job. When you work in a people based, like especially people who are used to working with like creative agencies, they will come in and be like,
Use buzzwords.
Well, they'll be like, I built this marketing campaign, and they can like articulate to you, I did da 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 da, and then the second that they get in the ecosystem, and you're like, cool, I need you to go build this thing, and they're like, well, what do you mean? Where's my money? And you're like, money for what? To go hire a creative. Like, that's what I hired you for. But like, if they're not used to writing a go-to-market plan, if they're not used to identifying like, this is my target audience, and what is a great example of this would be, so when you work with influencers, not every influencer activation is equal. Is it better to send a PR kit to an influencer for an upcoming product? Or is it better to fly them in and have them capture early release content to film and then put it out as a YouTube channel?
Ooh.
Which is better? Because there is, in some certain situations, one is definitively better than the other.
I think it depends, right?
But how do you know when it depends? So you have to be able to, people can articulate that to you in an interview, and they can say like, here's the problem that I was solving and here's how I solved it. And you're like, great, they know. And then when they get into like an unknown situation, we talk about this a lot at work in the way that we're trying to build out our influencer team. So influencer management, how I build a relationship between the company and an influencer. Agencies, talent agencies are really good at this. Lots of groups like Twitch has account managers. They're very good at this. But there's a difference between an influencer manager and an influencer strategist, which is asking that question of what is the right tactic to drive the outcome that I need, capitalizing on the relationships that I have with those influencers. What is that right thing? So there isn't really training modules on how to work with influencers, what tactics you want to drive. So when we're teaching people how to do that, we use the analogy of we're trying to teach them phonics, not sight words. I don't want to teach you the answer to everything. I want to teach you that when you encounter a brand new situation that is unknown to you, you can sound it out. And so we're trying to develop that level of like, what is it to train somebody based on phonics versus sight words? So I know that when I look at CAT, it's not just cat. I know that C makes the k sound and A makes the ah sound, so that again I can figure that out when I'm unknown. So we want to make sure that like that's the type of thing that we're solving for. Is it is easier in a non-technical world to kind of BS your way through an interview. And so again, nobody cares. Nobody's going to be like, Aaron, you can never progress if you don't do this. I'm doing it for my own, again, like intellectual stimulation. I'm doing it because I want to be better at my own job.
No, it's also, I think it's human nature to want to become a better version of yourself.
Yeah.
Like I if someone told me, I remember when I was in college, I remember thinking like, as soon as I graduate, it's done. I don't have to fucking
I'm
open
never going to
another
go back.
book.
Oh my God, how much I would love to go back to college now.
Yeah. So like, I always thought that like, it was like, I do more reading. I do more learning. I do more inquisitive endeavors than I ever did in my life. I truly enjoy learning about, granted, I have nuance in this where like, it has to be things that I feel I am interested in it. So like technology, finance, these are the things that kind of like spearheaded me. And you're right. Like I do need to kind of take a step back sometimes. I am in like this world of like very logical, very technical, even the financial.
You can tell somebody to write a code and they can or cannot.
Well, no, I'll tell you, like my interviews are, I'd be curious, how long are your interviews? Do you take the whole hour?
In total? Oh yeah, I take the whole hour. But I like usually, so my interviews are 30 minutes of, so I do my interviews backwards. So when I go do an interview, I will introduce myself. This is who I am. This is my role at the company. And this is why my role interfaces with the role that I'm talking to you about today. Here's a little bit of backstory that you should know about this role. Here's why the role is open. Like I'll give them a bunch of information, even if I'm the third person that they've interviewed with, about the evolution of the role, where we think the role is going, blah, 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 blah. Then I'll go to them and go like, what questions do you have? Which normally people wait till the end of the interview. And the reason why I do that is because when you give people the freedom of time to actually open a conversation with you, they actually almost always volunteer you information that is more valuable than the questions I'm going to ask them. So I can see what's important to them. I can see what types of information they're looking for. I can find out what's valuable to them in a job. And while that isn't necessarily why I would or wouldn't hire someone, it is really valuable information that I want to know as that I'm going into the questions that I'm going to ask them. It makes people more relaxed. Like, it just is a better experience when you do it that way. So I probably spend the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes of an interview on that section. And then I'll spend the rest of the hour-long interview doing the actual, like, tell me about a time when you bleh. But I want them to feel like this is an opportunity for them to be like the real of like, hey, like, I've got questions about this role. Like, why is this role open? Right? And so
That's the best question someone can ask.
Oh, 100%.
Because then you can actually be honest with them. Like, I always say, why is my predecessor no longer here?
Here's the other thing I would say. If a role has been open for a long time, would also, like, when I was interviewing for my role, it had been open for several months, they had not filled it. And I said, what has been missing in every single candidate that you've interviewed that has made it hard for you to fill this role? Yeah. What is it that you're looking for that has been hard for you to find? And so that's sometimes, depending on, now if you're the first person that's interviewing, the answer is like, we just haven't interviewed enough people yet. But that of like, why is the role open? And what have you not thus far been able to find in the candidates that you've been interviewing is another like pretty valuable question.
When I got so I've been working at the same place now for, it'll be 5 years in January. I remember when I asked them, I was like, why is this position open? Like, what happened to my predecessor? They gave me the best response. They're like, you don't have a predecessor. We're growing and we have a need for this role now. And I was like, fuck yeah, that's the best answer.
Yeah. And sometimes we can say like they left the company for another opportunity. Sometimes they did an internal transfer and like, hey, they're still at the company. They did, we call it a lane swap, where like you work in marketing and now you work in finance or whatever. You can lane swap. They're
still within the company. That's actually the second best. The second best response is they're actually still here. They got promoted, or they went to like another role to better utilize their skill set.
They were curious about a different craft.
Yeah, it's not that they left.
Yeah. So,
but that's funny that you say that. Forgive me, because for my interviews, the way I do them is 15 minutes. I ask 3 or 4 questions, and it's accompanied by like generic. I'll say you're not going to hit a deadline. What are you going to do? Because everybody tells you like, I do this. Okay, cool. I gave you a deadline. You're not going to hit it. What do you do? The second question I'll ask them is, you're in an environment that is foreign to you.
Yeah.
And you're not necessarily sure how to navigate these waters. What do you do? Yeah. I don't care about what you've done. I care about, to me, the real value of an employee is not the Monday through Thursday. It's the Friday when all the shit hits.
It's actually the soft skills. We've talked about this in one of our, go check out one of our previous episodes, because we've talked about being able to train people for anything, but I can't train you to like give a shit. I can't train you to be proactive. So I want to know the soft skills that I'm not going to be able to train you on. So the thing in ours, in the way that we interview, is everybody has a specific thing. So someone's going to interview you on your communication style. A different person's going to interview you on your management skills. A different person's going to interview you on the craft specific side, like, if it's social media, a social person is going to interview. So
that you do have like that technical portion.
Yeah. So I have like, and I will tell them like, so usually I'm not the craft person. And so I will say like, hey, it's not that I don't care how good of a social influencer, community, whatever person you are. My job is specifically to talk about your ability to communicate and collaborate.
Do you guys do this for all positions that you guys hire for? No shit.
Yeah. It's
so like 4 interviews?
Or 3 or 4 no, I think by the time you get done, it's like anywhere from 6 to 9.
Jesus.
It's a long interview process. I think I interviewed, when I got my job, now this was 4 years ago, so our interview process is a little bit different. It took me 6 total weeks to interview, and I think I went through 9 interviews. But I was like in an executive role, so it's a little bit different. But like even our standard,
that's why I asked. Like for
our
all
standard interviews are, it's 4 to 5 interviews, but before that you have like a phone.
HR, pre-screening.
Phone screen. And then depending on if it's like a technical role, you might have like 1 or 2 other, but there are
competency exam
at least the minimum number of interviews you will do is 5.
Wow.
Yeah.
We have like 2.
Yeah,
the original screening with HR.
Yeah.
And then for ours specifically, I make them do a competency test. I need to make sure that you understand, like, so that whenever you interview with me, I already know whether or not you know SQL or any of these things. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's just, it's interesting to hear, because the majority of the conversations I have are like either in information systems, IT, or finance. And to hear you talking about those soft skills, it is important, because that is the X factor in every person that I've ever hired has been like, you're smart. I already know you're smart, but what has set you as like what set you different from the other people is that you have that value add characteristic.
Well, and
you will do the things that I don't know that you should have done, and that's why you're going to get what you're going to get.
And at my level and in my discipline, so community or marketing as a like craft or like a specialization area, a lot of the things that I'm going to get interviewed are more like value based. Like, what do you think is the most important way for a business to build a relationship with a consumer? That's not like you could
try to chat GPT in real time.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, people, if they do enough interview prep, can pretty well get through that. Now, there are a lot of times where we'll say, like, I got a lot of questions like, what's the thing that you're most proud of? What's the like marketing thing that you've done that you're most proud of? What was one of your most successful campaigns? That is the type of thing that they'll ask. And that's where my resume speaks for itself. But again, you know, there are other things that I think as I start to, in my job, I less create marketing campaigns, and I am actually developing more foundational strategies on, again, how do we build the business of influencer management? How do you scale supporting an influencer network that is thousands upon thousands of people when the entire number of employees that do that work is in 24 maybe?
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that and have meaningful connections? Like, those are the types of philosophies that I am building and the systems that I am building at work. And that type of work you do. I mean, I feel like I am better at if I have that stuff. So I've really enjoyed the experience. I wish I probably would have given myself a little bit of a break because I'm taking on a lot. But I have one more week and then I'm done. So
God bless.
Yeah. 3 months in, man, 20 weeks and I did it.
Then you get your life back.
Yeah. And then I'm going to I don't know, probably do some house projects we're getting chickens. So that'll be fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Homegrown eggs.
Yeah.
I'll be bugging you guys for like that. Do a beekeep next so I can get some honey.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we talked last, you and your significant other just started your relationship, or like it was just
we were a couple
blossoming.
months in. Yeah.
And you had come off the divorce with JP, and
Yeah.
you had been starting something new. And if you guys didn't watch that episode, the second half of that is basically like it's a throuple podcast.
Yeah.
We incorporated him. It was
It's
actually
the
a lot of fun.
bromance, and I was just like left here as the awkward third.
But since then, I'd be curious to ask you a couple personal questions.
Yeah.
And obviously, answer however you'd want. I don't want you to say anything that you don't want to. You seem healthier.
You know what's really funny? I was at work the other day, and I was in a meeting with a woman that I've known for probably 10 years. We work together at Twitch. We work together now at Riot, and she's on my team. And I was explaining to her this problem that we needed to solve. And I was like writing on the whiteboard, and I was like, this is what we need to do, and here's why I think this is important. And I was like articulating exactly what we need to do. And she looked at me, and I didn't know like what she was going to say. And she goes, I think you should just know that something happened to you 6 months ago. And the way that you show up with confidence and the way that you're able to communicate exactly what you believe is doing a lot more for you than I think that you realize it is. And it was like, oh, like, I don't think I'm an insecure person, but I would not be like, I'm the most confident person in the world. And really small changes that you start to make in your life, including the people that you surround yourself with, including investing in your own personal well-being, whether that's, I had a professional coach, an intuitive coach, and a therapist, and I went back to school, and I have a great boyfriend. You'd be surprised. That shit works, man. Like, it fucking works.
Takes a village.
Yeah, it takes a village. Like, I was a very, I don't think I was a different person, but I think I was not as resilient. And so, like, one of the lessons that my professional coach and I talked about was resiliency. And I was like, I am a resilient person. And she goes, well, what does resilience mean to you? And no one had asked me that question. And I think for a long time I looked at resilience as being able to get through something, but like the world keeps spinning. Like you're not going to just like yeet and rapture into the sky when life is hard. Like the world will keep moving. Things will keep progressing, and you might just get left behind. So the ability to just like get through something is not resilience, because you will get through it even if you have to trudge along. And so reframing resiliency as the ability to get through something without paying a long-term mental toll completely shifted my approach to probably 90% of my life. Of like, is what I'm doing right now am I going to pay for this in 6 months? Am I going to be exhausted and worn down and it's going to beat down my mental health? Is being around a person or a situation dragging me down? And if it's not worth that mental toll, I just don't do it. If there are arguments or hills that I'm dying on that I'm going to pay a toll for, guess what? I don't do it anymore, because I don't want to pay a price for something if the return on that is not healthy for me. And so I think having the people to hold you accountable, I think people giving you patience and grace, and I think, keeping you accountable for the way that you approach things and framing them in a way that shifts that perspective just slightly, just like we talked about in that podcast of like having the list. Like, what is the list of who you want to date? What is the like things that I'm willing to do or not do in my professional life, my personal life, whatever? And I stick by that now. I have, oh God, my God, we have boundaries. That's amazing. And so it's just paid off a lot.
Well, I'll go a step further too. I don't think it's like a binary scale of like a 1 or a 0. I think it's like a slider, like in a video game. Yeah. Where if you have the wrong people,
full circle.
Yeah, if you have the wrong people around you, it doesn't have to be your partner. It could be friends. It could be perhaps your
sibling. Family.
Just introduce your inner circle. Take a long, hard look at your inner circle and think to yourself, if I alone would be a 0, okay, does this person put me at like -1, -2, -5, -10? Or does this person put me at like 1, 2? And then do that with all the people around you. And now, by the way, that shouldn't be just solely on how they make you feel, because you could have someone that like holds accountability to you and says, hey,
and that's not, doesn't feel good.
Yeah, it might make you feel like a -2, but then understand the underlying, like, okay, why are they busting my balls? Why are they coming at me? Maybe they see something in me that I'm not seeing in myself. Maybe they're seeing me fall short. Maybe they're seeing me not hold myself to the standard that I should. Yeah. So like, you might feel like that's a -2 because they're being hard on you, or maybe they're expecting more from you. But then you have to kind of take yourself out of the equation and say, okay, is that my fault? Should this person be a 3?
Yeah.
But because of me, they're a -2.
Yeah.
Keep that person around. Yeah. This person makes you feel like
how
a 5.
How much is my own hubris contributing to the situation?
This person makes you feel like a 5 because every time he comes around, we just get high and don't do shit all day, and we get Taco Bell.
But actually, for your long-term success,
they're a -5.
It's not about a snapshot moment in time. It's about the average. And they talk about this in relationships, whether it's romantic or friendship. It's never 50-50.
No.
It is never 50-50. Sometimes, like right now, I am like inundated with like work, and I'm like highly stressed out, and there's all this stuff on my plate. I'm probably contributing a much lower rate. It's not 50-50. Like, he's bringing in, this like man is like bringing me lunch because I don't eat half the time, and being like, hey, I took care of XYZ thing, or I called XYZ contractor for the house, like taking care of things from my mental load because I can't do that. And that allows me to be the 100% that I need to be at work. And then there will be other times where he's at like 30% and I'm at 70% because he's got stuff going on and I'm showing up and I'm doing it. But over time, yeah, it might be 50-50, but no day really is probably that, right? You kind of trade that off. And I think that's like what a healthy relationship is that you have that shared, like, what do you need from me? And I'm going to show up. And when I need you, you're going to show up for me. And so keeping that in mind, it's not about the snapshot of like, to your, the rating system of like, are you good for me today? It's, are you generally good for who I want to be as a person?
I get some flack whenever I discuss this with people because I always say that everything should be transactional. That's not necessarily like a bad thing. And I don't necessarily mean transactional as like this thing for money, but I mean like, is this person there for me all the time? Well, then I should reciprocate. That person gave to me. I should reciprocate. Is this person the person where, I might not necessarily think I need them for something, but they're adding value to my life. Well, then I should reciprocate these gestures in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't even have to be the same thing. He gets you lunch, and then maybe you clean the house.
Love languages are different. It's like love languages are different.
But it doesn't have to be also with like a significant other. It can be with friends. I'll give you a prime example. There's a person that I know that we have like nothing in common. But like, he's very business savvy and so am I. And our relationship is like strictly like, this person's selling this portion of a company. Are you interested in equity? No, I'm okay. Hey, this one has like some real estate that they're trying to like liquidate. Are you looking to expand your portfolio? It's not even a friendship. It's just mutually
like
beneficial.
Yeah.
And then we ended up having a dinner because of it. And we figured out like, oh, we're actually like best friends. Like, this is hilarious.
Yeah.
But that's how it started.
Yeah.
It can also mold and adjust and adapt.
Yeah.
But like, if I wasn't valuable to him and he wasn't valuable to me, we would have never gotten to step 2, right?
And value looks different across a number of things.
But you have to have value.
Yeah.
some people think, and I'm not trying to like, extend my way of thinking to everybody else, but some people think of friendships as like, what do I need and all these other things. I always looked at every relationship as like, what can I give to this? And then who am I giving this to? And then how are they going to take that? And like, will that then be reciprocated in some way, shape, or form? That's what I mean by transactional.
Yeah.
And when you break down every relationship that you have, they're all transactional, not 50-50, like a mother's love is
But they
not.
provide different things. You might
Exactly.
provide me with like emotional humor, right? And like you're like real. Like I call you when I'm like gut check me for a second, like you. And
I do the same. I do the same.
Yeah, but like then you'll call me and ask me for like, hey, social media advice,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm not gonna call you and ask for like career advice because we work in two very different fields,
I probably would not give you good advice, to be honest with you.
right? And so, but I will call you for like, hey, like I'm having the like, especially beef. I'll be like, dude, tell me that I need to just like put my big girl pants on and like toughen up.
Suck it up.
Right. Tell me that I'm not being able, like, right. So I'll call you for that and you will like keep me accountable. Like you're a good friend at like accountability. And I'm probably a good friend because I'll be like, hey, like you want help with this? Like, oh my God, I love your daughter. Like bring her over to the pool and like we'll do stuff. And we have mutual time together. We all go to dinner together. Like those are the types of things that our way of exchanging that are very different. But there is a mutual respect. There is a mutual benefit. There is that like return on I'm putting something in, but I know I'm getting something out. I know that I could call you in the middle of the night and being like, I'm in trouble. And you'd be like, I'm there. I know you could call me in the middle of the night and be like, I'm in trouble. And I'd be like, what do you need? That is like the type of relationships that you should have that are not contingent. They're not any of those things. I think that's...
But the variable is over the course of time, and we've also shown each other the value.
Yeah.
Different values in different ways over the course of time.
And we don't agree as everything, as noted on this
Oh,
podcast.
yeah, for
we
sure.
don't agree on a lot of things sometimes, but like...
But that's okay.
fine.
But then I'll piggyback off of that. That is a value. You don't
That's
want
respect.
to. Well, you don't want to be surrounded by an echo chamber of yes men because you'll never get you said that I'm very real or like you know what I mean, like whatever. What you meant to say is when you call me when you're on the fence and sometimes you want to hear no.
Yes.
You need to hear no.
Yes.
And that's a value.
Because I need accountability. But I also am mentally capable of handling accountability. I am capable of you being like, you messed up on that.
That's because you're a big girl.
Right.
Not everybody's a big girl. And what I mean by big girl is not like
it's not a sexist.
older,
it's just like,
mature. I'm talking about like you're mentally equipped to be
mature.
To be shown a difference of perspective.
Yeah.
It's okay. Like we said earlier, like you can have a different perspective and it's like something can be right or more right or most right for you.
Yeah.
And it could be the exact opposite of what I need to hear. Like professional advice. What works for me, I guarantee will not work for you.
No.
And what works for you.
Some of your like management practices, I'm like, that would never
Woo,
fly.
you should, my good manager.
He's forced to say yes
You're getting a
because
check
there's
tonight.
no HR.
Listen, man, nothing motivates like money.
That's right.
No, but I want to be careful how I tackle this one because you already know where I'm going to go with this conversation. Has it ever surprised you? Okay, forgive me. This is where I'm going to kind of walk on eggshells. Sometimes we can be in relationships over the course of time, and what has been, the preconceived notions that you previously could have had can be turned on their head. You could think that you know somebody. You can think that you can understand someone, and then they can still surprise you even after years.
Yeah.
Where do you think that aspect of surprising in a relationship can occur from? Because we've established that over the course of time, we'll know each other better, that we'll feel more open to one another. So then we'll, dig into the extra variables. So then we'll get even deeper. That's why we say like, oh, this is my really good friend instead of just like an acquaintance or whatever. This is my best friend since middle school, whatever. Yet people can still surprise you. Is that because we didn't do a good job of doing our due diligence throughout that relationship? Or is it possible that people just change?
I think both are true. There's a saying that you have friends for a reason and you have friends for a season. And so what that means is basically like sometimes you are friends because there is a benefit that you provide with each other. Your friend that you met, right? That you guys, it started off as like, kind of professional, like entrepreneurial advice or mentorship, and then it turned into, hey, we have something different. Sometimes
Did we just become best friends?
Yeah, did we just become best friends? Let me see my wolf lamp. And then sometimes you have friends for a season. So I have friends that I was friends with when my daughter was very, very young and we were in the same stages of life. And then as our kids grew up and became very different people, we're not friends anymore. It's not because there was like a crazy, like harsh ending to like, there wasn't a fallout. It's just, we outgrew each other. There were friends that I had that didn't have children. And when I started, when I became a mom, our lives were very different. We weren't friends anymore because our lives were in different stages of life. And so sometimes friendships end not because there's like a dramatic closure, but because you just outgrow each other. You change as people, and that's like okay. And then I think that there are the times where the friendships end because there is some type of like very dramatic, difficult like event that like changes either somebody's perspective, somebody does something differently, there's a falling out of some kind, there's some type of disagreement. And I think those are like, every situation is different. Sometimes like, if you like go, read Reddit and you read like, am I the asshole? And like people are like, they was my best friend and then she slept with my husband. I'm like, how could you have seen that coming? You know what I mean? Like you can't predict that kind of stuff. And then there are times, where I think you can look back and you can be like, if I'm really honest with myself, I can't be surprised. And do you blame yourself? Maybe, but like, who's to say?
Relationships are very difficult to establish. I would make the argument that they're even harder to maintain.
Oh, yeah. And very easy to break.
Very easy to break. Is it difficult when you feel like sometimes it seems like one party, the person who ended up giving more ground is now worse off for it because that becomes the status quo? And let me kind of give you like an anecdote.
Yeah.
If my friend is like big on fast food, okay? And at the time, we were going to Chick-fil-A and Taco Bell together, whatever. And it eventually got to the point where it was affecting me in a much more harmful way than it was affecting them.
Yeah.
So they, prospectively, may have not seen the harm that this was causing because to them, it actually wasn't causing that much harm.
Yeah.
But for me, it was.
Yeah.
So then maybe I'm like, hey, like I actually don't want to go do this. Because I maybe was always the person who allowed for certain circumstances to occur, that individual might not necessarily have the intention of giving me ground. Like someone who would understand a relationship would be like, oh yeah, you're right. This does affect you negatively. And I don't necessarily need to do this.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go at it either. Let's go to Crush Red and get a salad.
Boundary changes and a willingness to adapt.
But I feel like if you're going to sit there and say that we are close friends, we're this, we're that, then that should have been established. There will be some moments, like we said earlier, it's not 50-50. Some moments, a snapshot. I might need 90 from you.
Yeah.
And then other times I'll give you back that 90.
Yeah.
But the good friendship, that strong bond,
Yeah.
should kind of override those moments of the peaks and the valleys. Has it ever surprised you when that necessarily is not the case?
I mean, I think there's been different scenarios. Like I definitely have friendships where I know that I carry most of that. And sometimes I am very cognizant of that. And I know going into it's like how they say you should never loan money that you'll be mad if you don't get back.
Yeah.
I'm like that with my time. And so there are people who I am investing in the time and I know that like I'm really not going to get that back. And for whatever reason, I'm willing to do it, whether because I feel like that person needs me and I want to be able to help them or whatever the case may be. And I look at it as like volunteering more than I look at it as like a relationship. Like there's that. I think the hardest ones are ones where you feel like there is a shared understanding and then you get hit out of left field with like this doppelganger of the situation of like this like really murky version of like you then realize that they thought the relationship was very different than what you thought it was. Or like, in a recent, scenario, I got hit with this like, and here are all these perceptions that I have of you that were a total doppelganger of who I know myself to be. And what do you do with that, right? How do you like say I've spent so much time with a person and I've done all of these things, and then this thing that they're coming to me and saying this is who you are is very different. And so, in those situations, I think they're hard. for sure. You know, I recently had a falling out with a friend, and it was awful. It like is not an easy, and it's not fun, and it's not anything that I think is great. And at the end of the day, like I have to look at how is this person treating me in this moment? When there is a misunderstanding, or when there is a disagreement, or when there is a conflict of some kind, is that person kind? Is that person seeking out understanding? Is that person giving empathy and patience? Is that person treating me with respect? Is this person treating me kindly? You can disagree with someone and be kind, right? And so I'm not going to like look at somebody on what they believe or what they do, and I'm going to look at like, how do you treat me as a human being? And if the answer is to that not well, what is that return? What is that exchange left? And it might be hard, but
well, not just that, but I mean, you know, variance is the spice of life. So it's like you don't want to be surrounded by people who are like in every shape, form, kind of conforming to you.
Yeah.
You do want those like that additional perspective. Like we said it earlier, there are times where you're like, dude, what the fuck are you talking about? And there are some times where I'm like, I would never do that.
Yeah.
But then we've never disrespected one another. We've never attacked one another. It was always like,
never judged you.
Works for you, not for me. Works for me, not for you. Or more than anything, I'll tell you what happens is like, I get it. I understand why you would do what you do.
But that's the like seeking understanding. That is the like, hey, I don't agree, but I want to understand, right? I don't need to like, you might choose to like, I don't even know what example to use. You might be like, I will never drive X version of a car. I will never drive that car. And I'd be like, okay, well, why? I disagree with that. Like, you may be like, I hate Jeeps, right? I drive a Jeep. I love my Jeep.
I do hate Jeeps.
You're like, I hate Jeeps. I will never buy them. They're blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, well, why do you believe that? And I would seek to understand what you were being. And I'd be like, oh, okay, he doesn't think they're comfortable. He doesn't like how they look. He doesn't whatever. And I'd be like, cool. I love my Jeep. You know? Okay.
Did it shock you when that relationship, like when you said that you had the falling out?
Yeah.
Did that come as a shock to you?
1,000%.
Why?
Because there hadn't been any really like.
There was no confrontation before that moment? So it was like boiling like in secret and then just lashed out?
Yeah. And I think that.
Did you lash out at her? Did she lash out at you, or?
They lashed out at me.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I think that like, you know, it's really hard to be put in positions where, one, I'm not really good when people are aggressive towards me. I don't know if that's like a trauma response or maybe I'm just shy.
You're like a possum. Like just play dead.
Yeah. I really do. Like I literally shut down in those types of situations. And so, I just don't handle aggression very well. And so like, I can handle somebody coming to me and being like, yo, I'm like really upset with what you did. And I really want to talk about it, or I want to do whatever. Like I can do, but I can't do like name calling. I can't do a lot of that. And that like, to me, like the psychological safety is gone. And once that's
you're being attacked or you're attacking.
Correct. And so it puts you on the like attack or be attacked thing. And I'm just not interested in doing that. And I had never previously had an exchange in that way. And it was like one of these like very like attack or be attacked situations. And I was like, oh, this is a very different experience for me. And so that was the part that caught me off guard. I don't like, again, I think that was a situation where if I had like looked back in time, been like, I could probably have predicted that something like this.
Hindsight's 2020.
Right. Hindsight's 2020. But I think for me, and I think I have a history of doing this, which is like part of my growth as a human being is really living by when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. Right. And when somebody, whether it's a friend, I was just talking to a girlfriend about this morning, when you are in a relationship, again, friendship, romantic, business, whatever the relationship is, and your bar for how you need to be treated is like here. When somebody treats you below that bar, fool me once, like shame on me, right? Fool me twice, or, you know, shame on you. Like
George Bush said, fool me once.
Is my problem.
You ain't gonna fool me again.
So when every time somebody disrespects you or every time somebody doesn't hold to that boundary bar, what happens to you is that bar for yourself lowers and lowers and lowers and lowers and lowers over time. When you tolerate disrespect, your version of what you should tolerate lowers, right? So you go through this thing where like your bar.
Well, no, that's your new bar.
Well, right. So your new bar. You're
setting it.
And when you're in a toxic relationship or a toxic friendship or a bad boss situation or a bad job, what you tolerate is like down here, right? So then let's say that you get into a new job or a new relationship, or if you find a new friend and that person treats you here and you're like, wow, they're better than the old one, but your bar is like still up here. Like that fucks with your brain forever. And I think what I had done for a really long time in my life, because of whatever, I was young, I gave people a lot of freedom, my bar was like low. And so I would tolerate a lot of things, or I would like put up with a lot of things, or I would give forgiveness for a lot of things. And I carried that weight for a long time that drug my bar down. And even when situations have been mutually beneficial, like we've just drifted apart in friendships and we've, moved on or we've changed or whatever, or when they've been like very intentional, like we are no longer friends, what I've like noticed in like the circle that I hang out with is like my bar is not so heavy anymore. Like it's not being weighed down, and I am treated better and nicer and kinder, and I am happier because I look at how people are treating me against the standard of what I should accept. And even like we've had conversations where like he'll do something nice and I'll be like, I didn't need you to like do that for me. Cause I'm like in my head worried about like, oh, am I going to have to like pay for that later? Or it's going to be like a fight later that like, oh, you did whatever, because that's how I would be used in the past. And he'll be like, hey, like, you know that's not normal. You know that it's like not normal for people to do nice things for you and like do that. And you're like, oh, it's not okay. Like I need to like have a higher bar for myself. And so it takes a lot of like work to be able to get into a place where you can do that. But, I think overall, like they're hard. I was surprised. I was shocked in some situations, and in other ones I was like, you know what? Like these things are happening for a reason, and I'm able to reevaluate my bar.
Do you think it could be reconciled?
No.
Not bad.
It's not even that. It's like I am very forgiving. I am very much a person who can say I accept an apology. And a lot of times I've learned, there's another saying that it's healthiest if you can learn to accept an apology you're never going to get. And so I'm over it and I can move on. I can acknowledge that it hurt. I can acknowledge that it was unfortunate. I can acknowledge that that is there. But I can also realize that I'm never going to feel comfortable again. And I'm not willing to lower the bar. I'm not willing to like go back into that situation. And so, I'm thankful for friendships that I've had. I'm thankful for friendships that have ended, not because I'm glad. You have friends for a reason and you have friends for a season, and I'm in a new season of my life, and the focus is on being happy, healthy, respectful, productive, being someone who stewards positive change, being somebody who, wants to contribute positively towards my community. And if I can put my head on my pillow every night and know that I did that and I lived by the golden rule and I was the person that I wanted to be, and am I proud of that person today, then that's enough for me.
I always said that all the things that had to happen for me to be where I'm at and who I am today. The good, the bad relationships, the ones that fell out, the ones that died peacefully, and the ones that died with a bang, right?
Yeah.
Or the ones that I formed and the ones that I continue to carry. It's in a very weird way. You just have to accept, move on, and then be grateful for the good and the bad, because it took both to like get you to the point where you're at today.
Well, and the thing that I was saying earlier is like the world will keep moving.
Yeah.
Right? And I can choose to move through whatever the world chooses to, whatever path the world goes on next. I can choose to let it drag me down. I can choose to let it prevent me from doing good things. I can let it prevent me from that. Or I can face it with the resilience that I need to, and being like, you know what? Tomorrow is my new day, and tomorrow is my day to do the best that I can with this situation that I've been given. And I have always chosen to do the latter. I've always, in really difficult situations, been like, what is the best thing for me to do in this specific scenario? And I just will keep doing that. And so, you know, I think I'm a strong believer that you get back the energy you put out into the world. And I am not the type of person that I'm not going to let it make me cynical, and I'm not going to let it drag me down. And so I'm just going to be the person I have always been and, you know, try to be happy and healthy and, you know, live my life.
Well, all I can do is be thankful for our relationship and our friendship, and I do really appreciate that. You were episode 2, I believe episode 39.
And now
episode 100. That's crazy.
100 podcasts in.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Do you love it or hate it?
Oh, this has been one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life.
Good. I remember you wanting to start a podcast. I remember you calling me being like, I think I want to do a podcast. And I was like, you and every bro.
I know. Well,
but
I think the difference has to be like the reason why I wanted to do it has changed now.
Yeah.
So like at first, what I thought it was going to be and what it is now are completely different. And I will be completely transparent. I benefit from this in ways that are like, there are people that I've met from the podcast that we are now going to be in business together.
Yeah.
And we are making things outside of the podcast kind of, if I would have never had them on, I mean, and I'm going to have them on again, from everything from like medical to we're going to start our own promotion. And it's, we were talking earlier about like hybrid remote work and all that stuff. What the podcast does is it forces me to come into the office. It forces me to have the conversations. And that FaceTime, I think specifically the fact that I don't make anybody do anything, but the fact that we have it in person in a studio, it's not over a Zoom call or whatever, that nonverbal cue, the fact that you come in, you show me respect by taking time out of your day and you came here, you know, there is something to be said about that. And it's already provided me so much that I will probably continue to do this for a long time. Yeah. Strictly because of the professional development, the relationships that I've made, the networking and everything. Yeah. Also, it's a lot of fucking fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure like the topics, like I see the guests that you have on and, you know, listen to them. I'm like, these topics range every like gamut of life. Like if you are just a person who likes to learn about stuff, like it's a good.
I am not the podcast for that.
I mean,
go to like All In, go to like Neil deGrasse Tyson.
But like the diversity, I'm not like educational.
Yeah, fair.
But I mean, like if you've ever wanted to just be like, I wonder what that's like. I wonder what. The variety of like stuff that you and the types of people that you have on from like every walk of life, from all of these different fields, like it's interesting to you, but it's not like only one time. It's not only finance. It's not only this. It's not only that. And so, you know, I think even just for you to like learn about how many times have you called me and been like, I had this guest on and like, this is some crazy stuff. Like the number of times we've had those types of conversations, like I can tell it's just, again, like the reason I went back to school is the same reason you do the podcast. It's like that intellectual stimulation. It's like learning about things. And
I've been throwing some curveballs. There's some guests where I'm like, this conversation's going to go this way.
Yeah.
And then now I'm like arguing why pedophiles don't receive enough help. I'm just like, what is going on here?
I mean, there have been times where you and I like call, and what I like have always really thought was super funny is you'll be like, so here's what I learned about this one.
Yes.
And like, there's always a lesson to the learning. You're like, that was some wild stuff. And here's what we're going to take away from that.
Like, when I first started this, I was more concerned about like, you know, don't talk too much, let the guests talk, don't interrupt. Then it got to like the point where I was like, let's try to bring in people that can like educate me. Now it's just like, dude, just make sure it's YouTube friendly.
I don't want
just
my
not break
monetization.
TOS.
Yeah.
Dude,
my brand.
That specific episode that I was talking about was the first episode that I had to go in and literally there were words that were used.
Oh, we talked about it because
God.
You called me and I was like, so here's all the things that are gonna get flagged, and I like gave you like the dictionary list of the words, and I was like, it's this one, 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 and you were like, what am I supposed to do? And I was like, literally, you have to mute them. You have to mute it out. And you were like, I can't believe I'm going to have to do that. And I was like, bruh.
4.5 hours.
Yeah.
4.5 hours.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know me, that's a lot of fucking time to me.
They actually have, I think we're getting close to that, but they actually have AI that will do that for you now.
Yeah. Well, the problem is though, it's also context, because you can say certain words in certain contexts.
If it's an educational context.
There was one portion of that. It was the funniest part where it was like 5 seconds of like a statement was made, and that whole statement could not be used. And I didn't have a sound bite long enough that for 5 seconds, so I just used my intro music. So she's like talking, and then it's
like elevator music. It's so funny though. That stuff is like really funny when it happens, because you're like, you know exactly, like if you're a listener, like a frequenter of like podcasts, you're like, I know exactly what shit went down. Like this was some like, we're gonna lose our monetization. Yeah.
Yes. And then afterwards, she was like, "That's good, right? Like, where you did good." I was like, "Yeah." We're gonna have her back on, but God.
There's like one YouTuber that will start to get into topics, and you can tell that like he recorded it and ranted, and then all he does is put a "we'll be right back" screen on it, and then he like plays music, and then he's like, "Anyway," and then he goes like on, because you can tell that he just like
took that whole snippet out. I've had like 4 or 5 episodes where it's like we're talking about something, and then I fade to black, do my thing, fade back to black, and it's a completely different topic, because there's like 20-minute conversation where like afterwards I'm like, I can't have any of this on YouTube.
Yeah.
And one of the things I tell everybody is like, I don't censor you in any way. All I ask, and we'll post all of it. You know what I mean? I'm not going to edit anything out. All I ask is it's YouTube friendly. You'd be surprised at how many people are like, and then not YouTube friendly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, I appreciate you. You've been a source of a good anchor to me whenever I'm getting too bold. You're kind of like, hey, buddy, come back down, relax. And you've also been like super helpful with, this is a completely different world for me. And I've called you multiple times now where I've been like, you know, should I do this? Should I do that? I'm not really sure how to navigate these waters. So I really do appreciate it.
Yeah. That's our exchange.
Now episode 200. By then, I don't know, another year from now, like AI Aaron will be here with AI Ariana.
Yeah, I'll be gray.
We don't even have to be physically
I'll
here.
like gray haired. Yeah, I'll just be an avatar VTuber. Oh my God, episode 200 VTubes.
I'll wear a furry outfit. I'll be like dressed up full furry.
Mark it now. Somebody, when we get close, when we're at like episode 175, I can't wait for you to spend $10,000 on your furry suit.
I'm quitting.
Is that? One more question before we call it quits. When are you guys getting back from vacation?
Oh, 2 weeks.
Oh, 2 weeks away?
Yeah.
Let's do dinner again.
Okay.
That shit was so funny. You guys can pick the spot, but Brandon texted me afterwards and was like, one of the best tables I've ever had in my, because like that's what he does. Like he's a professional server. He's like, I fucking loved you guys. He's like, come back whenever you want. I was like, hey, I picked the restaurant this time. They'll pick it next time. But I had a really, really good time. Bruno loved it. So appreciate you guys.
Great.
All right.
Thanks.
Aaron, thank you.
You're welcome.